You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the end is near.
Well, here we go again, a Saturday night up here in Boston. Well, it's July 16th, 2022, and we're going to be giving you the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about. Stay with us. Well, hello, welcome in, my friends. Wow, this is the best night of the week, Saturday night here on the Six Screens. I wait all day. I wait all week. I love to talk to you guys. You're my favorite friends. We get along pretty good, don't we? We don't have too many big arguments here on the Six Screens. But anyways, my name's Rick Ferrin, and I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world, right up here in Boston. Yeah, I say that because I'm not joking. I tell you, every week, we got a lot of apostates up here. They're coming out of the woodwork, more and more kingdom halls. They're closing down. More and more people I'm seeing throwing the towel in. They've had enough. I hope it's happening where you are, but don't be discouraged. I know I tell you this all the time, but please don't be discouraged. They're going to be coming to your neck of the woods pretty soon, too. You can't have hundreds of thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses leaving, and none are leaving your area. I mean, none are not coming to your area. I'm sure there's many right there. So post up on Facebook or in some of these forums. Hey, I live in Dallas, Texas. Any witnesses out this way that have left? And meet up with them. Yeah, so why don't you give that a shot? Boy, I'll tell you what. I know I get excited. I really do. I tell you, you're going to be hearing some stories here tonight that's going to rock your boat. You are going to be saying, come on, Rick. You know, they've always accused me here of sensationalizing since day one. But now people are catching up on the Watchtower. These stories we're talking about, they're not sensationalized. These are the hard, cold facts. I read a lot of these stories right from the newspaper. And we've got some tonight. One in particular that I've got to talk about coming out of Ecuador. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but we're going to be discussing this somewhat tonight. Now, it's kind of ironic. It's right around the same time that Stephen Lett, governing body member for Jehovah's Witnesses, what he did is about the end of June, somewhere around the 26th, 27th of June, he mentioned on a JW broadcasting stream right from the world headquarters, Stephen Lett mentioned that babies are enemies of Jehovah. And they're enemies until they get the truth in them. They're really not good until they get the truth. Now, you know what happened? We're going to go into a little detail tonight on this. But a sister, a Jehovah's Witness sister in Ecuador, she had a little baby boy on May 14th. And she killed the baby right around July 1st in that area, right after Stephen Lett said that babies are enemies of God. Now, I'm not going to blame Stephen Lett here. I'm going to let you kind of be the judge and the jury, but we're going to be talking about that story tonight. So stay tuned. That's disturbing news, but we're going to talk about it tonight. But anyways, the things are happening. Things are happening. You know, I came across something this week I have to share with you. I told my wife, Susan, I says, you know, Susan, I got to share this with the audience because they're not going to believe this story either. I've got some stories here tonight. You're going to go, come on, Rick. Come on, knock it off. Hey, I'm giving you the truth. Maybe you can't take the truth in the Watchtower. I don't know. But anyways, you guys have all heard of Jehovah's Witnesses in unusual marriages and unusual relationships, really. You all heard that. Don't say no, Rick. They're normal. Their relationships, their marriages are just like anybody else's. I have to say no, they are not. Now, I have got information this week from an ex-Jehovah's Witness that was willing to share something with me. Yeah, he's willing to share something with me. Now, you listen closely to this because you're going to be falling off the edge of your seat. So he tells me this week that his mother, well, she's 72 years old. She's a staunch, loyal, very committed Jehovah's Witness. And there is a young brother in her congregation that's falling in love with her. Now, she's 72 years old, and she all of a sudden is getting this really funny feeling inside of laughter, and she's very happy that she now has a boyfriend in the Kingdom Hall, and the boyfriend's befriending her and really wanting to get to know her better. And he's a young brother. I say young. How about 22? 22 years old. And he has this fetish for a 72-year-old sister. Now, let me tell you. Now, let's just stop and do a little math here. It's very easy to do the math on this one. 50 years. 50 years. 50 years. Now, that's a pretty wide gap. Have you ever heard of anything like this? But this is not the only unusual marriage. Now, what I did say is I asked this person, now, your mother, I mean, she thinks this is wonderful. And the young boy, the young brother, 22 years old, he thinks it's great. They want to get married. They want to get married. So I says, well, what are the elders saying? Well, I have to tell you, thank God the elders have a little bit of sense. They're thinking it might not work out. What do you think? I don't think it's going to work out either. Jeez, I don't, I'll tell you, the longer I live, the crazier I am hearing things. And it's not the first time. Does someone want to speak up? Go ahead. You're on with us.
Yeah, Rick, just a couple of quick thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Quite often you will find that young Jehovah's Witness sisters will fall in love with a brother that's spiritually qualified, an elder, traveling overseer, something like that. Even if he is 20, 30, or even 40 years older than them, their thinking is in the new system where, a 1,000-year reign of Christ, that 30 or 40 years won't make much of a difference. With the brother that's 22 marrying his quite an older sister, my first question would be, how much money is in her bank account, and when is she gonna say bye-bye to the world and he gets all her money? Just a thought on that. But I know in the Jehovah's Witnesses you do see some great disparities in age, and it's probably because of the way the Jehovah's Witnesses think about things. And Armageddon's on the verge, and 1,000-year reign, and if there's a big disparity in age, it won't make any difference. You're running it across 1,000 years. Oh, by the way, Rick, happy 74th birthday.
Yeah, well, not yet. It's going to happen soon, though. But thank you, Dick. Yeah, on the 19th of July, I will be 74. I thought I was 73 last week, but I will be 74. I did the math on. I'm 74. You're right, Dick. So that's good. So, anyways, but this isn't the.
Yeah, Mr. Farron.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I was caught. The statement by Mr. Lett caught my attention and so forth. It's really outrageous and preposterous and so forth. I got a question of Mr. Lett. If you're listening, would you call in the program and answer these questions? Number one, what does a baby know about the crime, the violence, the lawlessness on the face of this earth? What does a baby know about baptism? What does a baby know about church membership? What does a baby know about anything like life in general and so forth? And you say now that a baby is an enemy of God and so forth? Baby doesn't even know what God is and so forth. And he's going to say that the babies are enemies of God. And then this is the end result of the Watchtower Society, like that incident you just gave me about that lady killing her baby and so forth.
Well,
I mean, that's only preposterous. How low can you get for an organization that claims to be religious and claims to have respect for the sanctity of life? I mean, you're nothing but a cold-blooded bunch of baby killers. That's all the Watchtower Society is.
well, yeah, we're going to get into that story in just a little bit, Ken. So, yeah, we'll go more into detail. I got a lot to share on that.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, we'll get back to the marriages. I mean, you guys have heard some pretty strange, unusual marriages. This is the biggest, widest age discrepancy that I've come across. But I've come across other unusual marriages in the Watchtower, in the congregation I went to right here in Massachusetts. We had a 54-year-old woman. And she met a return visit and fell in love with him. He was 92 at the time. But, he was a real nice man. And I can almost go along with that. I almost see, like, for camaraderie, I can go along with that. But, we had a man back in the 1980s. And he was a handsome young man, dark, tall guy. And really, he could have got any girl in the Jehovah's Witness religion to fall in love with him very easily. And he was a nice guy. But he's out in field service and he meets this 42-year-old woman that already has 2 children. And so anyways, he starts studying with her. She becomes a return visit and he falls in love with her and he marries her. And I mean, his parents, his father in particular, who's not a witness, he was all upset. He said, geez, Richard, why are you marrying a 42-year-old woman? You're a young guy. You're 20, 22 at the time. You got a future ahead of you. And she had 2 children. I believe there was another one on the way, and her husband left her, and he ended up marrying her. And it really caused a big furor in the congregation. I mean, everyone was really scratching their head on this one. So, I have heard of, age groups, but this 72-year-old woman having a boyfriend that's 22 in the organization, that's a little, that's stretching it, right? I mean, the woman will really be the one that makes out, unless Dick, like what Dick was just saying, and unless this guy is, but the woman isn't really, wealthy or anything. So I don't know really what he would gain, but I suppose there are some witnesses that are so twisted, they feel, well, if I don't find someone now, I might not find someone. So people are rushing to the marriage altar, I guess, to get themselves married. So I just thought I'd bring that up tonight. It was just a little something that went on this week. And I'm sure you guys...
Can I make a comment, Rich?
Yes, go ahead, Susan.
We've been talking about this, and I'm wondering where this boy's parents are. I cannot believe this. If they would allow him to do this, the boy's parents, did the kid graduate from high school? Does he even have a job? Those are 2 things that I'd want to know. And next, from the woman's standpoint, again, I agree with Dick. What about her bank account? Even though it might not be a lot, it might be more than what he has. And secondly, and this has to be brought forth in a marriage, how does a woman her age think she's going to keep up with a young kid like that? She's marrying her grandson. Think about that. A woman is marrying her grandson. It's almost obscene, really, to think that they would approve of something like this. It's wrong on so many fronts. I understand maybe he has strong feelings for her, but that a kid that young would think that those strong feelings that he has for this woman is love, I don't think so.
I'm with you, Susan. I'm with you. Now, I'm 74. Dick just spilled the beans. Everyone's thinking I was probably still about 60. But, Dick just ruined So he just ruined it. But I'm 74, and I got news for you. I'm a great grandfather. I have grandchildren having children right now. So, this woman's only a couple of years younger than me. She could be a great grandmother. And here she is, like you say, Susan, she could be marrying her grandson, really. Oh, I don't know how that would work. I can't possibly. I don't know, maybe women think a little different, but I couldn't possibly think at 72 years old, 74, I'm sorry, 74 years old. I couldn't possibly think of hooking up with a woman 22. I wouldn't. There'd be something innately wrong with that. I would never feel comfortable, but I guess some people do. Some people do. I mean, 50 years, that's a big difference, right? Yeah.
Another question I
Yeah.
would ask. Another question I would ask is, this boy, what happened to him as a young child to make him think this way? There's something wrong here. There's something wrong with his thinking, with his psyche, with his view of women. It's not correct. And either the parents, or I say the elders, if they're that wimpy, I mean, they stand up for someone who walks down the street and puts a pen in their mouth and they think it's a cigarette. They're willing to disfellowship them. They would step in and try and solve this disaster waiting to happen. It does not make sense.
Yes. Go ahead, Constance. You're on with us.
Thank you, Rick. I didn't want to interrupt Susan, but I completely agree with her. But Rick, two comments I wanted to make. I guess the first comment I wanted to make is, a lot of the sisters, they have the short end of the stick when it comes to the availability of brothers in the organization who are single and eligible and all that good stuff. So the pickings are really few. That's one big problem, Rick. Okay, and the other thing I was going to say is, our dear friend Joe Dyer, he's working today, but otherwise I'd have him pop on and verify what I'm going to say. But he met Dan Sidlick and quite a few of the governing body members back there in Bethel back in the day, and Dan Sidlick's wife was 30 years younger than him. Dan was back there and he was with, some of the brothers, and they were on the subway, and the brother that was with him said to Dan, do you know who that lady is over there that was on the subway? And he said, no. Joe said, no, I don't know who that is. He said, oh, that's Dan Sidlick's wife. And Joe said, really? And Joe said, she was like 30 years younger than Dan Sidlick. So, Rick, she went shopping, spent all this money, going to all the stores in New York City and everything. But, Rick, women are looking for, in the organization, they're looking for status. They're looking, governing body member, elder, CEO, whatever. And, and the governing body members, they have money too. So it's very, very interesting. And I liked, I'm drawing a blank right now, Rich Borghe's comment with regards to how witnesses feel. I mean, Rick, in this world, 30 years, that's a huge difference, okay? I remember back in the day when I dated a guy that was 20 years older than me. Yeah, we had some things in common, but, 20 years is 20 years, okay? And so anyway, but what I was going to say, in the new system, I forgot about that. I've been out 20 years, Rick. But, they think, oh, yeah, when you get in the new system, everything's going to change. It's not going to make a difference. So anyway, Rick, the poor sisters, I'm sorry, but this sister is 50 years older than this young brother. I'm sorry. She's got to be pretty desperate, Rick. I'm sure she's very lonely, but, it's like her grandson. I mean, I give it maybe a year or two to last, Rick, and that'll be it. That marriage, they'll be filing divorce papers, honey. Okay, so thank you, Rick.
Well, what you said, you said something that's touching me in the right way here. It's making sense to me. You mentioned that, well, in the new system, everything will go back to normal. So, let's do it now. Even though I'm 50 years older than you, we'll get married, and Jehovah will kind of straighten things out mathematically in the new system. I mean, that is interesting you say that, because I know even Dick, well, he's been on the program saying this before, that even his wife, when he first met his wife, he wasn't totally attracted to his first wife. He loved her and she was a nice lady, but he wasn't like chemically attracted. But the brother says, well, don't worry, Dick. In the new system, everything's going to come back to perfect and it'll be wonderful. So this is how witnesses think. This is how witnesses think. So thinking like that and putting yourself in the mindset of a Jehovah's Witness, that makes sense. Thank you, Constance. Thank you.
Now, I have a comment to make regarding the oddities in our congregation. There was a sister who grew up as a witness, very beautiful, beautiful, dark, long hair, past her rear end. She would, beautiful sister. And she was raised as a witness, and she was molested within the congregation from the time she was 5 till I don't know when, but it was a long history of being molested in the organization. She stepped out, was disfellowshipped for various reasons, and then came back. And she shared it with me because she was at a pivotal point in her anxiety level when she was divorcing her, husband number, I want to say 5. And so anyways, she was presently married to a really old guy. Like, he was so old, and he was a contractor, and he wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, but she married him anyways while she was disfellowshipped. And so I got the feeling that she got disfellowshipped because she needed a partner. She probably needed to fill some voids in her life. It's so sad. But so then she married this guy, comes back, and she had a history of doing that. And so when I would bring, my husband would come to the congregation, and I am seriously not exaggerating, but there were sisters, including her, that would flat out flirt with my husband right in front of me. They would give him these really interesting hugs, and one of them in particular had really long fingernails, and she was an extremely large lady, very white, pasty, looks like she'd never seen the sun. And she would dye her hair jet black. Now, I'm going to sound really judgmental right now, but there was oddities in the way the women dressed. There was a lot of Betty Boops in my congregation. They would wear bright red lipstick, big long nails, and black hair, and white skin. One looked like a geisha girl. Oh goodness, it was kind of like a weird comic show. But anyway, she would flirt with my husband, and her husband was very strange, and I think he was a homosexual, and I'm getting a little deep here, but I really felt the oddities of these different types of things, and I felt innately, and I look back on it, a fear that one of the sisters was going to actually try to take my husband away from me, and I don't have those outside the organization now. I don't feel like that. My husband and I've been married a really long time, but okay, so I'm going to sum it up. I am so thankful that I am out, and I am still married to the same man, because I believe if I was still in there would have been some groveling over, because there was some just strange things going on that I can't put my finger on, but it was just weird. Yeah, so sorry. I think I just probably said a goofy couple of things, but
well, no, that's not goofy. That's not goofy at all. And I'll tell you why, because I think a lot of people feel very uncomfortable in that organization around their mate. I mean that. It's a perverted organization. And, the sisters and the brothers, they can get a little friendly with you or your mate. I've seen it myself.
Yeah.
I've seen it myself. And, you say, well, there's nothing really going on there. But I can remember when, I won't go too deep into it, but my former wife, Inez, she's not living now, but years ago, we were in a service group in the van. And we were in the van, and there was an elder in there, and he started talking to my wife, my former wife. And he put his hand on my former wife's knee. And, she felt weird about the whole thing. And when he got out to go to a house, he says to me, Rick, did you see him put his hand on my knee? I says, well, I don't think it's anything serious. He just kind of gesturing you. She says, no, women can feel things. And that alerted me. It really did. I says, well, it could be something there. But, there's so many perverts, Mary. in this organization
Mhm.
that
Mhm. Mhm.
it wouldn't
Yeah.
be, yeah, they're
There
vying
was a
for a mate. Yeah.
I can't say concretely what was going on in my congregation, and I'm speaking for about a few of them. But there was a sexual presence and aura, not aura. That's not. I don't like those words. I'm not. There was a few sisters who I felt, and I'm looking at it now intuitively as a woman, that were, I believe, was having sexual relations with the presiding overseer, because a couple of times when the presiding overseer's wife would go out of state to visit her family, particular sisters would stop by and give meals to this particular brother who was a presiding overseer. And I thought that was really inappropriate. Sisters would show up to clean the house and so on and so forth. And I would tell, because I live right there. I can see it. And I'm like, I told the sister when she got back, I said, hey, you don't mind if, that beautiful sister with the high heels that shows up with her vacuum, the one that showed up with her vacuum when my husband was home alone, when I was visiting my family, the same sister, I have a very attractive husband, by the way. And I mean, a lot of women think he's very attractive. So I would just chalk it off. But this same sister would drop off a vacuum. I wasn't even asking for a vacuum. I don't need a vacuum. And my husband goes, hey, so-and-so dropped off a vacuum today. And I would say, well, what was she wearing and what color lipstick did she have on? I mean, that's basically what I was thinking. But it just seemed very, we're in a religious organization where we're supposed to have a high level of morality. Another thing I really like to express that even my husband noticed, he thought it was really weird. There was some sisters, like when he would go to the hall with me, he goes, I'm out of here. I don't want to come back here because of hypocrisy. And I would say, what do you mean? And he said, well, what about that sister with the tight leather plastic skirt all the way to the ground with the slit up to her crotch and the high Fredericks of Hollywood zip down heels? And I went, how do you know those are Fredericks of Hollywood? He goes, well, we get those magazines at my work. I know that those are Fredericks of Hollywood. And I said, what are you doing looking at those magazines? Well, they're not pornographic, but they, the Fredericks of Hollywood, if any of you guys listening that are old enough to know those silly magazines that used to come in that you don't order. I don't even know if they're still around, but they have those ridiculous looking shoes that only come from that magazine. But they would wear them to the hall. And I thought something isn't making sense. We're reading Watchtowers on how to have the perfect family. And here's the images of a perfect family wearing these perfect little dresses that are very conservative. Yet we have 3 or 4 beautiful sisters who look like prostitutes in the hall. Like, this is just not, it created a level of cognitive, I look at it now, there's a term, it's a psychology term called cognitive dissonance. It was making me sick to my stomach and my husband, but I wasn't to say anything, because anything that I did or say, and I was, what do you call it? What is the word? I was told in so many ways, do not ever bring reproach on Jehovah's organization to cause my husband not to become a Jehovah's Witness. I would be in, what was it?
Well, that's what they call you. That's what they call you. No, you'd be put on
Yeah.
reproof if you kept it up. Well, that's good, Mary.
Yes,
Okay, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to move on, but thank you, Mary, for sharing that with us. That's good. It gives us an idea of what goes on in that twisted organization. So many ways unusual.
Hey, Rick.
Yes. Go ahead.
Hey, Rick, this is just speaking on that subject. I talked to a buddy of mine up in Chicago, and he was telling me that Brother Hendricks, his brother is a circuit overseer in the Chicago area, and he recently left his wife and got with another brother's wife there in the local congregation. So I just learned that the other day, so I thought that was kind of strange. They went down to Florida, so he's been disfellowshipped.
Oh, yeah, this happens all the time. All the time it does. Yeah, nothing unusual. I mean, it happens in the real world, too. But in the Jehovah's Witness organization, one of the reasons, in fact, Mary was bringing it up, and how she thought some of these sisters were hitting on her husband and what have you. I think one of the reasons why this happens, it's just my own thought, but so many marriages are made in Brooklyn to begin with. People don't really love one another, but they tie the knot because, well, he's a ministerial servant. She's a pioneer. Well, she's okay. I don't love her, but I'll marry her. So what happens is you have all these unhappy marriages. So they're all looking for somebody better. I think that's what goes on in this perverted organization. Just my thought. I don't know. Could be wrong. Could be right. So anyways, unusual marriages. It's a strange organization. And the more we look back on it, the more little things we can think of that we agree with. We really do. There's a lot of problems in that organization when it comes to sexuality. All right. Well, we'll move on.
Can I ask one quick question, Rick?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Randy.
I'm just curious. Who do you think it is that's going to sign up and volunteer to be their chaperone, the one with the 50-year spread?
Well, I'm going to, Randy. I didn't think of that, but I mean, should Granny have a chaperone? I think so, according to Watchtower rules. Yeah, they'll have to have a chaperone. I don't know if they should be able to sit together in the Kingdom Hall either. I don't think that's good either. I don't. So maybe she can sit down front. Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got a sister. Go ahead, sister, and we'll get the next sister. Go ahead, sister, first. Yep.
Okay. I'm 76. I just turned 76. My husband's dead. I own my house. I have a nice pension and Social Security. Don't you think that's a good incentive for a 20-some-year-old to marry a 70-some-year-old? He's got it made in the shade.
Well, he does have it made in the shade. I hope you don't have any brothers chasing you around.
I know, but I was thinking that today myself. It's like, I mean, if you see an older lady like that's a widow or whatever, and she's got her own house and Social Security, he's got it made in the shade. Anyway, it's just my thought.
Well, that's a good thought. Well, thank
Hello?
you. Well, thank you, sister. Let's hold on. We get another
Hi.
sister. Dick, we gotta go ahead, sister. Come in, sister. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Annie from Montreal.
Yes, Annie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. It's an interesting topic, and I won't make it long. I won't give you my age, but in that age group, we'll put it like that. I just had a thought. I mean, it is very, very unusual, and Watchtower is beyond unusual, but I would like to just say, and this is just my personal opinion, because I've been married twice. First time was a JW, and he was only 5 years younger than me. And my second husband was 8 years younger than me, so I don't see that's a big deal, I find 50 years is going a little bit too far. But on the other hand, I just want to say that what I don't like, and it's not just JWs, but I mean, in general, I don't like double standards, where a man can be like 60s, 70s, 80s and marry a 50-year-old younger woman and nobody flinches. So that's my opinion on that, although I do find that, Watchtower definitely makes it very difficult for everybody concerned. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, Annie, it's always good to hear from you. It really, really is. Now, don't you be a stranger. You keep coming back and seeing us, okay?
No problem.
Good.
Thanks. Bye.
We got to, let's bring Dick in, then you. I don't know who that is, but go ahead, Dick, and then the fellow was just on. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, just a couple of quick thoughts, because you mentioned it. Most of the audience, if they've been a fan of Six Screens, has heard my, my saga. But I was going out with a very beautiful woman. Yeah, her name was Paula, and we were studying the truth book together. One day, she told me she was never going to become a Jehovah's Witness because the priest talked to her. So I was invited to take the sister, Pam, my first wife, to her prom. She asked me if I would take her, and I did. And I thought she was a nice person, but she didn't have the figure that I was looking for or anything like that. But then I realized the new system, and this was 1972, almost 73, that in a couple of years, Armageddon was coming. And I thought one of the reasons I married her was because I thought she would help me get through Armageddon, because she was so spiritual. And she was spiritual. She was a wonderful woman. But I married a woman that was a terrific person. But I loved somebody else. And then there was a time when she came. I was filling up my car with gas, and she came in with her boyfriend, a brand new Mustang, and she said, Dick, and I pretended not to see her or hear her, but she said, we're still here, because I told her 1975 was coming. This was like 1976 or 7, and I was so angry at the Watchtower because I'd left the Marines and I left her. I wanted to stay in the Marines to be Sergeant Major, and I was going to marry Paula, and all that went to naught because of the lie that Jehovah's Witnesses told. They did tell us that 1975 was in 6,000 years of mankind's existence on the earth, and that those who saw the beginning and the end, and that was going to be that was 1914, the beginning of the end. They were age of understanding. So 1975, the anointed remnant would still be on the earth, and there'll only be a few left, and that was going to bring Armageddon. So I thought, you know what? She doesn't have the figure that Paula had, and she didn't like to do the things that we and Paula used to do. We still do motorcycles and drink beer, and you know, I married somebody. I knew she liked me. That wasn't a problem. I married her really so that she would be a big asset to me getting into the new system, and that in the new system, her kind of plump body would be that of what Paula's was. She'd have a wonderful figure. So I married her, and when she said to me at the gas station that we're still here, it was just the day after that. I was so upset and ticked off that I had sex with this other woman. And I'm not trying to justify immorality but anyway, the Watchtower's lies and deceit affects people's lives dramatically. Thank you, Rick.
Well said, Dick. And it's always a sad story to hear that. But you're a gentleman. You're a gentleman, and I know you've always. And I knew your wife as well, and she was a nice lady, and you always speak very highly of her, and that's nice of you to do that, Dick. Thank you. I'll say, well, we got another fella. Go ahead, sir. You're on with us. Yeah, go ahead. Sir, go ahead. You're on with us. Well, we had another man on there, so give him time to come in. But anyways, you're on the 6 screens. JW World News, the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. Well, we'll move away from marriage unless anyone wants to put a little frosting on the cake. Anyone want to say one more thing about marriage before we move on? If not, we will move on. All right. 1, 2, 3, move on. Okay. So anyways, I got thinking today that the governing body, I was thinking, well, what is the average age? You know, I see these guys on JW streaming. I see pictures of them online. People are talking about the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. So I'm wondering, well, what is the average age of the governing body? And whoa, I was surprised to hear it. 72 years old. That is the average age of the governing body. But what does that have to do with anything? Well, in my way of thinking, I'm thinking these guys are getting old. I mean, I must be getting old too, right? So it got me thinking, what will things be like in the next 5 years? You know, that age is going up and up and up. And surely, I'm sure the Watchtower will come up with some new light of some type or some kind that they're going to make significant organizational changes. I can see this coming already. And I wonder if there's going to be some type of an internal scramble or fight for control. I mean, that's generally what happens, right? You give businesses enough time, religions enough time, And you get these people, they get power hungry, and who's going to be the next guy in charge, and these other fellows are getting old. So I know there's going to be some scrambling going on. But then I got thinking, well, wait a minute. The governing body, well, in my way of thinking, even when I was a young Jehovah's, they only came into existence back in 1972. But back in the 70s, I used to think the governing body was old back then too, and they were. But the one thing that you have to understand about the governing body, it's like a lifetime appointment. It's very much like the Supreme Court of the United States. Once a person is appointed, that's it. You got it. You're in there until you die, really, unless you get too old and senile. But a governing body member, they have a lifetime appointment. And when one dies, they are just replaced by yet another one, but still old. But that's how it goes on. So the governing body, I'm just going to give you some figures here. I think you might enjoy it. I hope it's not too boring for you. But let me just give you some of the. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah, we got. It looks like 8 governing body members. We've got Mark Sanderson. Well, he's 57 years old. Kenneth Cook is 62. Jeffrey Jackson, he's 67. Anthony Morris, 72, and still drinking his scotch, right? Stephen Lett. Oh, my goodness, Stephen Lett. He's 73. David Splain, 78. Garrett Loesch, 81. Well, he's my friend, Garrett. I got to know him pretty well. He's 81. And Samuel Frederick Hurd. How old do you think he is? He's 87. He's 87 years old. So that makes, let me just count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8. That's what I was thinking. It looked like 9 when I had the list here, but it's only 8. That's what the 8 governing body members. So actually the average age is 72. Unfortunately, they all look like the picture of health. I'm sorry they don't. They look like their bodies have been somewhat abused. That they've been given a gift by God, but it looks like their bodies have been somewhat abused. I mean, maybe too much junk food, maybe a lack of exercise. I mean, it looks like their lifespans are really going to be shortened. But I mean, that's something else when you stop and think about it. But I think once this governing body, when they die, they're preparing people already. They're saying that, when they go, they're going to go and join the executional forces of Jesus. They're going to be in heaven, and they're going to come back and fight against the problems in the world we have today. So the governing body, I think, is going to be replaced. I'm looking at one particular man. I see him a lot. His name is Saranko. Yeah, his name is Saranko. Brother Saranko. I'm thinking he probably will give the whole hateful dead, the hateful 8, let's call them that. I think that he's going to give them the boot here soon, and I think he might take everything over. But I don't know. He's a dark horse, but it seems like that could happen. They'll go back to 1, because I'm going to tell you, when you have 8 people running anything, do you think that everybody's in unison with each other? Not at all. And I'm sure that's exactly what's going on in the Watchtower right now. I'm sure there's a lot of disagreement. They sit there and, well, should we do this? Should we open up the convention sites again? No, I don't think so. COVID's still out there, and we're going to spend all this money. So you get all these men arguing around a table. So I'm thinking they might go back. Just my thoughts. I'm thinking they might go back to 1 person like they did years ago with Noor and friends. And, the most, I'm going to, as I examine all of these, the most egregious example of this governing body member that I think is egregious, he's over the top, he's too much, is the Muppet, the obvious Muppet Stephen Lett. His cartoon facial expressions. And at one time I thought, and I cut him some slack, I thought he might have had like Bell's palsy or something like that affects the muscles of the face. And I certainly would I would certainly not in any way ever make fun of that, but I don't believe he has that. He's doing these facial expressions and inflections, and I'll tell you what it does. It makes everything that he says, it sounds like he's reading from some type of a storybook to a kindergarten class. That's what it seems like to me. They talk down to the witnesses. You can tell they have very little respect for their audience, really. I'm going to put a picture here of the governing body up. I would like to have you see it. And let's see if we can't get them up here so we can at least see them. So you know what I'm talking about here. These fellas are getting very old. And there they are right there. If you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you can see it. So you can see that all of these men, they're pushing. Well, there is, and right in the middle, that's Samuel Hurd. And, I'm going to play a little clip from Samuel here in just a few seconds. I just want you to hear the nonsense and how these guys sound. That they're not doing Jehovah's Witnesses any favor by having these old men, so to speak, run an organization. None of them have anything. There's not one of them that I would tell you is an excellent speaker. And I'm not, just picking on him here and throwing tomatoes at him for nothing. But there isn't one of them that's a great speaker. And what bleeds through their discourses when they speak it's like they're talking down to people. And that's how it comes across all the time. And I have to tell you that the governing body is living in a bubble. That they're not living in the real world. They're out of touch with reality. And I'd love to see the governing body have to make a living on their own. I don't think they could do it. They treat people like children. And I have to tell you, sometimes even listening to them, even though I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, I'm saying the witnesses listening to this streaming coming off of JW Broadcasting, I'm saying that this would insult their intelligence. It really would. So, I hate it too. One thing I hate, look, and I don't want to be Ricky the hard man here, always criticizing people too much. But I got to tell you, one thing that I always hate is at the end of all of these JW broadcasts, they always come up and saying, well, the governing body wants to send you our love. We love you very much. Friends, that's delusional. Does the governing body really love everybody very much? I don't believe they do. Now, what I've got here, and I'm going to get this queued up so you guys can see it. At one time, really at one time, they had excellent speakers. And I'm not just saying that trying to sound like an old timer here. But when I was growing up in the so-called truth, I can remember circuit overseers, district overseers. Many of them had really good speaking voices. They reached people. And I found them very, very good. And you can sit there and you could really listen. I could actually listen to officials of the Watchtower. I could listen to them speak, and it was encouraging. And they made good comments in the course of their talk. But nothing like that anymore. It really is nothing like that anymore. And so I'm going to play you guys, I don't know if some may be too young, some might remember Brother Noor. He was a good speaker. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I've got something here. I want you to listen to Brother Noor and how the difference is between him. I'm going to play Brother Noor at first, and then I'm going to play a governing body speaker, and I want you just to hear the difference. No, I can remember legitimately clapping. Because I enjoyed some talks. Now, not all Jehovah's Witness talks were great. I'm not falling back in love with these guys. But I mean, I did it. In fact, it gave you, boy, you felt good. You really felt good. Well, let me get this up. Well, let me share a video here. Let's see if we can't get this to play for us. So I think we got that up here right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video. I want you to hear it. And this is Brother Noor. And let me just bring it up here. Let me just make it a little bigger here. I'm going to bring it up so that we'll be able to we'll be able to get it up here. Let me just hold on one second. I'm just going to
authoritatively,
enlarge the screen.
will we,
And I
as a
wanna bring it
result,
up to,
understand
let's see,
better what
50.
is
I'm gonna
really
bring it up
taking
to
place on Earth and how it
55
can?
seconds and 55 minutes and 39 seconds in. So let me do that. I want to play this to you. You guys listen. This is Brother Noor. Now, I'll tell you what. Brother Noor is at the Polo Grounds speaking. Now, this is back in 1958. Now, let me tell you something. Back in 1958, my mother went to that convention. I didn't. But back then, Brother Noor, if you can believe it, there was 258,000 people at Polo Grounds and also at Yankee Stadium. So let me play you this. I'm just coming up here now to get this 55. Let's play it right here. But just listen to how he talks. You know, he sounded like a really good speaker. I mean, don't believe everything he says, but listen to what he has to say.
Because the times of the Gentiles ran out that year. Its beginning in that year stands 1914 as the year when the times of the Gentiles ended, and the denial of this fact by all the Christians of the clergy cannot disprove it. World events from 1914 onward prove not only that Jesus Christ was a true prophet, but that in 1914 he came into the kingdom power to which he had a right, and that his presence in the heavenly kingdom began then. God's kingdom, by his anointed king, Messiah, had been born.
Well, there you go. Now that's a speaker, right? That's a speaker. And people will move. That's a real applause. I mean, it was like thunder. And people, they loved to hear what Brother Noah had to say. And he was an excellent speaker. I have to say that. I mean, I don't like to give the witnesses too much credit, but I'll tell you what, he was a lot better speaker than some of these governing body members today. So now what I want to do is I want to go to another speaker. Just give me a second here to get him up here for us. But I want to go to another speaker, Samuel Hurd. Now, Samuel Hurd, let me stop sharing this one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Samuel Hurd. Now, I just want you to hear the difference. That's all I want you to hear. I want you to hear the difference between speakers, Jehovah's Witness speakers of yesteryear versus Jehovah's Witness speakers of the current year. Really, there's a world of difference between them. So let's see if we can't get them up here. Let's get the Hurd up here right now. So let me get this bigger. We can share it. All right, let's bring Samuel Hurd up. Now, this is a modern governing body member. He's still in power. Let's hear Hurd.
At that time, it will be the resurrected anointed. So when the anointed are called to heaven, one of the first assignments is to fight. Yeah. Now that's interesting. Some of us were fighters before we became true Christians. Some even served in various branches of the military. Didn't they, Brother Moore? Some were Green Beret, not Brother Moore.
Well, let us stop it. I mean, you get the gist, right? I mean, there's speakers and there is speakers. Hurd is not a speaker. All of the governing body members are not speakers. That's one of their downfalls. The witnesses are listening to these buffoons and they're saying, what? They're my governing body? Yeah. And friends, I'll tell you, they're not happy. They're really not happy with these governing body members. So I wanted to play that for you. I think you could see the difference. I really, really do. All of them, really, all of the governing body have been reduced to none other than religious charlatans. Yeah, they're following the same playbook as other hypocritical televangelists. Yes, they are. Joel Osteen, Benny Hinn, Michael Murdoch, and the rest of them. And of course, they have nefarious plans and purpose. that they want to convert as many people as they possibly can in order to obtain as much money as they can steal. Yeah, that's what's going on. So they're not real speakers. I never, I mean, really, when I was even the witnesses, I never got I didn't see Brother Noor get up there with pinky rings and a Rolex watch. Of course, we could never see him up close like that. But he just looked like a pretty normal Jehovah's Witness, more believable. These guys aren't believable to me. These guys are, I don't know where they dug them up, but they certainly don't act like, chief executive officers of a worldwide corporation. They don't. In fact, when they speak, when the governing body speaks to their audience with information that they want to share with the witnesses, it's actually harmful to them. The information they are sharing is harmful. Oh, you say, well, Rick, what do you mean? Come on now, cut these guys some slack. You say, well, how is this harmful to them? Well, because I'll tell you what they're always doing. And I notice this is I do the news here. So, you guys don't have to get on jw.org, but I have to in order to know what they're saying so I can report to you. But I have to tell you, they are harmful to their audience because they're always, degrading women, then children even. They don't have much respect for children. I mean, just look at Let's comments, a few weeks ago that, little babies are enemies of God. They don't have much feeling toward your pets. They don't even like the idea that you have a pet. And they don't like you having material items. You might like to go out and buy yourself a new car. You inherited a few bucks and you want to buy a new car. Well, maybe that's a flashy display. And there's so many other circumstances that the governing body is constantly harping on you for. And now that you're retired, you should be, pioneering. And come on, you guys, they're harmful to one's health. Harmful to one's health. I think you all will agree, won't you? Do you guys like the governing body? Do you guys think they're as powerful as a speaker as Noor and even Rutherford, as much as nobody like Rutherford? But something, the man could speak. I will say that he could get an audience moving. Are you moved by the governing body today? Do any one of them come across as, wow, this guy's wonderful? Like to hear from you. Go ahead. Let's go with Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
It's Mary.
Oh, Mary.
Hey, just quick question. Is the governing body available to just a regular member? For example, if I just wanted to send a question or say hello, how are you doing? Are the general members, are they allowed to access them, kind of like Jesus was able to talk to people, and how, because they're kind of held at such a high, a high level of esteem. I always felt as a witness that they were they were not mysterious, but we would hear from them through the letters and things like that. But I always kind of got confused as to why they taught about Jesus, but the governing body was so distant. You couldn't talk to him if you really wanted to. So just you couldn't.
Well, what it is you can write. You can write a letter to the governing body, by snail mail, or you can even email, the Watchtower. Generally it would be a question, but according to Johnny, as we all know,
they weren't answering.
What's that?
Yeah, no, but they're not answering those letters directly.
No, that they get them, and then they have men that would do it for them. They would have secretaries and what have you that work for them.
I never got an answer from any of them.
Yeah,
I wrote every one of them.
Wow.
Well,
yeah, I knew about the letter writing because that's how you become anointed. Because one of our anointed ones, that's how she became anointed. Was she felt anointed, so she kept writing to Bethel, the governing body. Don't quote me, but that's how she got to be approved as being anointed. But I always kind of felt like if you really wanted to talk to one, I know there's like 1 million+ members. I get it, but and I'm nobody. I didn't feel like I was anybody special. Actually, quite the contrary while I was in there. But I always just kind of felt when I was reading the story how the New Testament covers Jesus, and if they're going to live by the standards of the Bible, even the New World Translation, that that's their version. I still felt like there was a disconnect between who is the governing body. Is it representation of the priesthood, the Levitical priesthood? Is it a representation of the apostleship? And I kind of felt like I was always really confused between why does the Bible talk about apostleship and the priests and the Pharisaical priests? And I'm not talking preaching here, just using the Bible as a historical
Right.
book.
Well, what they do with that is they believe that just like God chose the apostles, that they believe that they're in that they believe that, and they don't call themselves apostles, but that's what they believe. They believe they're like successors of the apostles. Yes.
I get that,
hello,
but
Rick.
why were they all hovering over New York, though?
Well, I mean, I have no idea why they hover over New York, but I mean, that's where their world.
I guess that's where I was getting at. I knew that much that they were esteemed, and I'm so sorry that I'm not articulating as well as I would like to tonight. But I always thought that why are they in this little building? It just didn't.
Well, you don't want them to build the Vatican City up there. I mean, it's bad. They have enough amenities as it is. Don't give them any ideas.
It's like 8 popes. They got 8. We have 8. We had 8 popes.
Well, it's like 8 popes. Yep. Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you, Mary. Let's hear what let's hear what Kurt has to say. Come on in, Kurt. Say hello to us.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. I'll just real briefly here. I completely agree with what you were talking about with the organization. Even with Rutherford, he was a dynamic speaker. Nor and even Franz gave a lot of good talks. And I remember with circuit overseers and district overseers, many of them were very good speakers. And the governing body today, well, it's a little embarrassing, really. Not judging them for their character, but their ability to speak and hold a person's interest is really lacking. So that was a good topic you brought up. I think it's a fair assessment. And I just wanted to chime in for a minute and tell you that I do agree with you. And thank you for taking my call, Rick. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kurt. I'm glad that I do have somebody out there agreeing with me. That's great. Thank you very much, Kurt. Yeah, so, little popes. I like what Mary said. They're little popes. They don't live in a place that's as grandiose as Vatican City, but, the ivory towers of the Watchtower. Friends, it's no slum, let me tell you that. They live pretty good, and it's just not there at that headquarters in Warwick that they live. That they have beautiful mansions all over the world. So they might rest their head there from time to time, but then they hop, skip around in their planes. They have planes, by the way. Watchtower has planes, and they skip all around the world and flip-flop here all over, and they sleep in these beautiful places. I mean, not just your average little house on the Hamptons. I'm talking about beautiful places in the Mediterranean and all over the earth. Beautiful places. They live like kings. They really, really do. Hey, the thing that
Hello, Rick.
Yes.
Hi, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you're on with me.
Okay. I came in the 60s and I heard lots of talks with Nor and with Freddie Franz. And you heard the same talks. I remember going to New York too, and there were 8-day assemblies.
Yeah.
And they would clap and clap and clap, and then it would go way over the lunchtime because everybody would clap because they were very good speakers. And when we were in the school, you were supposed to write notes, and you weren't supposed to just read it off. And that's all they do today because they're so afraid, I think, of saying something. They script every single word. And when we gave talks, we weren't supposed to do that. And I think if they gave dynamic talks like they used to, I actually think they would attract more people. And that's my thought. So thanks.
Well, sister, that's a dynamite thought, because I think the same thing. Everything now is a manuscript. Even when I got out back in 2005, I had a good elder friend, And he just when I was leaving, how they would do it is they would give you a manuscript for the public talk. And I mean, it was so scripted. It even said, when you're done with the talk, walk to the left and sit at the chair that will be there. Everything they had to say it verbatim. They didn't want them going off on their own tangent. And but no, Norm, Franz, and Rutherford, that's why they were good speakers. How can you give a good talk as a manuscript? It's like you're reading it, you know. Thank you, sister. All right, we got some others. Let's go with it. There's a woman in there. I think it might be Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
I just wanted to quickly say, when they forced me to talk at the circuit assembly, it wasn't a choice, and I was told that if I didn't talk about my baptism, that I would be disfellowshipped. You don't say no to a circuit overseer. And then I was forced to give them, I had to go over my speech with them before I could do it at the circuit assembly and get an approval. So I always felt like it was just, that was just a little controlling.
Oh yeah, no, it's like a playbook. It's okay, Mary, go ahead. Okay, I think Susan's next. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah. I wanted to mention too that really the only thing that qualifies these brothers is not their speaking ability or even their leadership qualities, because Noah was a great leader. It's their age. That's all that qualifies them. They have to fit in a certain box, and if they fit in that box, well, then we'll stick you in. And even if some don't really qualify because of their age, they kind of, snake them into this group of men that are supposed to run the Watchtower. But these men have no other qualifications. What other qualifications? Are they Bible scholars? Are they Hebrew scholars? Are they Greek scholars? Are they any kind of scholars? Have any of them ever gone to school? Have any of them ever been a business major? Nothing. The only thing that qualifies them for being a governing body member is their age.
Oh, there you go, Susan. There you go. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, that's not a good way to run an organization. It really, really isn't. Okay, you're on with us. Go ahead. Who's going to say hello to us next? You're with us. Go ahead. Speak up. Go ahead.
Hey, Rick, this is Justin. I want to mention that, to your point, they did go to manuscripts a while back. I want to say even back toward the 90s, they went toward the manuscripts, and it did take away a lot of the good essence some of the brothers would use to speak. I remember Brother J.R. Brown, excellent speaker. Brother J.C. Howard, another excellent speaker. I don't know if you know any of those brothers who gave talks, but he had a talk years ago called Joy Killers. But now with the manuscript, it's just so canned. There's no personal touch to it. And like the sister mentioned, I think it would bring attract more people to the organization if it wasn't so canned and corporate type. But as she mentioned, that they're afraid that somebody might go off script, so to speak. But a lot of the talks now are so boring.
You're right, Justin. I gave talks too. I gave public talks when I was a witness guy. And I remember I spent 40 hours. They gave me a talk. I remember the talk was called Science, the Bible, and Your Faith. And I would travel around the different congregations. And I actually, they wouldn't let you do this today, but I actually had an 8mm movie, and I had brothers come along with me. We darkened all the windows in the Kingdom Hall, and I put a movie screen up, and we actually played a movie during my talk. They wouldn't let you get away with that at all. And there was no manuscript. They just said, this is your talk. These are the scriptures you use. You write it. And I remember it took me 40 hours to do that. You put time into it so you could put your own personal feel into it. But not today. It's boring. Yes. Oh, excellent, Justin. Thank you. All right, who's with us? Oh,
hey, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how scripted it was. I remember a few brothers and I used to serve as attendants for the convention and the assemblies when they were going over their parts. And they were a little bit looser, you could say, certain things or whatever. But when I had a part on the convention back in '97, it was real scripted. They had this one brother, they made him sit down and rewrite his whole part of what he was going to say, because it was so scripted back then. I mean, well, now, and that was like the other brother said back in the 90s, it was so scripted that you can't say anything just about anymore. But I noticed when we got up there, even your dress how you were dressed, what kind of tie you were going to wear. Did the sister have on pantyhose? Everything was so scripted, and it seemed like we were in a play and not given a part for a convention.
You're absolutely right. No, that's why they're losing it. That's why they're really losing it. Even some of these talks, I don't read anything, and I get on Jehovah's Witness sites and read some what they're saying too, and I don't really see much thought about what these talks, how great they are. I don't hear it at all. So nobody's raving and ranting about them. Go ahead. Yep.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Just remember when they were talking about the military and everything in the 70s and stuff, but they were going down to Mexico and you had to serve two years in the military, but they were paying off those people to say that they had a card saying that they were in the military for 2 years in Mexico.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I understand the Watchtower is going to start trying to go back to the assembly halls this coming year, 2023.
Well, that's my next story, David. I mean, you must be some type of you're not looking into a crystal ball tonight, are you?
Yeah, I'm a swami dummy.
Well, that's my next. I was just thinking about you today, by the way. I think it was today or yesterday. I was reading a story about some guy who killed a fellow Sasquatch hunter. I mean, did you read that story?
Yeah, I know who the guy is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading. I says, well, David might be interested in that. I'm just curious. Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, but anyways, that story, David, you just said about, well, the Watchtower is returning. They're going to resume the in-person conventions for 2023. And it's right off of their website. I got it off of there today, jw.org. It said, we are pleased to announce that the governing body has decided that, Jehovah willing, we will resume in-person regional conventions in 2023. It says branches will now begin scheduling dates and selecting venues. We pray Jehovah's rich blessing to be with all those involved in the planning. Well, I'll tell you who's the only one that's going to be happy about this is the Shasta Beverage Company. They'll be pleased to hear this announcement. They'll be able to sell the conventioneers more and more Shasta soda, right? But I don't think there's any witnesses that are really jumping up and down. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be expensive. It's not like it was years ago. Gas.
It's just like when they used the Richmond Coliseum down there.
Yeah.
They spend $10,000 a day for that place, and they want to get at least 20 grand or 30 grand in their little boxes down there to pay for the next day. Then they go and they do that, and they beg the witnesses to give them more money because it's so much here and so much there, and it's a 3-day convention.
Yeah.
In 3 days, they're racking out $130,000 to $150,000 in 3 days out of 20 or 30,000 people that come to that place.
Well, David, these conventions are nothing more than a big fundraiser for the Watchtower. And they've been considering, is it better to meet at a convention where we can put some, sisters next to the contribution box and how the money rolls in? Or is it better to do all of these meetings online and hope people will send them their credit card and debit card? I know they'll make more by people going to the conventions. So they're opening it up. And I'm just thinking, David, that the money that it's going to cost, think about it. Things have increased a lot. We all know that. I'm not going to get too deep into the inflation part of everything, but we know that it's not like it was. It's costing everybody more money. So the average price of a hotel, I brought this up. In fact, well, let's put it this way. Back in the late 70s, we got some noise going on in the background. Is that your phone, David?
Yeah, somebody.
Not
me.
All right, we got to mute the phone. Hold on.
It sounds like air somewhere.
Yeah. different phones.
But what
All right.
what I was going to say to you is, if you have 4 people in your family and you give $40 from each person every week, add that up, add it up again for a whole entire year, and then add that up for 50 people in the congregation. If they're only giving $40 a month on their credit card, that's a lot of money going into this organization.
Yeah. Well, that's where they're making money, David, and people are doing it. But let me just reiterate here. Let me at least suggest to you what it was like when I was a younger man, going to conventions back in, say, the late 70s, early 80s. I used to go up to Montreal, Canada. And of course, I live here in Boston area. I'm about 350 miles away from Montreal. And I had to cross the Canadian border to do it. So you got gas, you got 350. So that was a round trip it was $100. Today it would be $100. Back then it was probably only $20. But today it would be $200 just in gas. And then I checked the other week. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I checked to see what a hotel room is going for up in Montreal, Canada. And a hotel room up there now, the average cost of a hotel room is $283 a night. So you're going to stay well, actually, you'd have to stay. I used to go up there. I'd get up there Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and I'd leave Sunday. So 3 nights. So between food, gas, hotel, you're talking, you could spend $1,000 to $1,500. That's a lot of money, David, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of money for just one day, you know. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that, but they all gang up and have 4 or 5 witnesses go sleep in one room for that kind of a price, and then they do that anyway. But the bigger point of this all is the money aspect that keeps rolling in. I have the telephone number to where they collect the money at now. And I have found out how much money they can roll in and roll out. And the bad thing about it is I'm really afraid that they can use this and take more money off your card without even you asking.
Well, hold on 1 second. I'll just roll back here. It was something you said got my attention. You said you have the telephone number to how much money they're taking in. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Well,
I'll give it to you.
Well, I mean, you don't have to give it to me, but who answers the phone when you call?
It goes right to their JW thing, and they deposit how much money they want to deposit.
Oh, in other words, you call that number and you can tell them how much money you want taken out of your card.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they give you. You have to give them your card number. How much more money are they really might be taking out? You never know.
Well, I mean, I hope they would be honest, but I hope they would be honest. But let's just kind of open up. Let's kind of open up the lines here. I want to get some thoughts from some of the people listening in. Now, if you had to, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, most of the people listening in, they were going to the conventions then, and some of the people even went to some of these big international conventions then, and we all seem to do it. I just played you a little clip from the 1958 Polo Grounds Yankee Stadium. Now, I wasn't there. I was probably only back in 58, I would have been 10 years old. So my mother went, but she left me with a babysitter. But my mother went with some witness friends, and she was gone for about 9-10 days. And anyways, geez, that must have cost my mother some money. I mean, I don't know how much, but I mean, staying in New York, she wasn't staying in one of those tents. She was staying in a hotel. Geez, that must have ran back then probably $600-700. When you think about it, there's a lot of money back then. But how about you guys? Did you go to some of these conventions and spend a lot of money? What did you do? Did you sleep in the tents? I remember Yankee Stadium in 1969. They actually had a tent city in the parking lot. People were kind of, they didn't have a lot of money. They could bring their tent and they could camp out in the parking lot. Can you imagine how miserable that would be? Really? Geez, hot and sticky and I can't even think of it. And listening to Jehovah's Witness talks all day long, geez, that's worse than going to prison, for goodness sakes. So, well, why don't you come on now? Somebody out there must have gone to some conventions.
Rick, I think I've shared this story with you before. It was the assembly in either the summer of 1967 or 1968 in Washington, D.C. I'm in New York City. That was back in the day where we had to travel to Baltimore, D.C., or where, Jersey City, whatever. But we met in D.C. either 67 or 67, 68 in the stadium where there used to be, or maybe there still is, a baseball team called the Washington Senators, whatever. But I know I mentioned it here before. We got there. There was the bathroom facilities were not in working order at all. They did not flush. They were filled to the brim. However, the society still held the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday meeting there, and they still served food. Now, I know regardless of religion now, that would not happen now regardless. Regardless of religion, that has nothing to do with it. But back in 67, 68, they held it, and it started, 10 o'clock to 5, 6, 7 in the evening? They held, I was just a kid, so it didn't matter to me, but can you imagine the mothers with the little children, the mother with the women with the monthly cycles, and the men, whatever health conditions they had going on? Can you imagine that? And of course, my mother and all the others, oh, such a blessing, Jehovah. Only witnesses will be able to do that. I distinctly remember that. But now I think, like I said, whatever Jehovah's Witnesses, basketball, football game, whatever, that would not be allowed to happen now. But I distinctly remember that. Like you always mention the 69 International Assembly here in Yankee Stadium, which I remember, but you had to drive up with your kids and stuff like that. I distinctly remember that because me and my mother, we stayed at the Harrington Hotel in Washington, D.C. while that was going on.
Oh, Shirley, you have a good memory. And it was torture. I was so glad when that convention was over to get out of there. I got in my little car and I drove back to Boston as fast as I could. I was there for 8 days. It was too much.
But the thing about it with that, it's like at least Yankee Stadium, we had running water and things like that. But 67, 60, why would, like I said, that would not be allowed to happen now? Back in the day, the toilets were not running at all. You could still go there, but they were filled to the brim.
You got to be kidding me.
And I'm just thinking back in the day, I remember Yankee Stadium, other places, the ladies' room has always had a long line. Sometimes they had to close down the men's room and make it into a ladies' room.
I remember
that. For those 4 days, we didn't have any toilet facilities at all, but still they held Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday without any incident whatsoever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I can remember back then going to 1969, for example. In fact, the bathrooms were crowded. And
oh, yeah, of course, yes,
I mean,
yes.
the women, the men's bathroom weren't that bad. I mean, you could walk right in, but geez,
yeah, like I said, they used to close down men's bathrooms to make it a woman's bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, in fact, I can remember lines that in some of these conventions that the women were standing in line. Even the last convention I went to just back in 2016 at the McMullen Center out here in Massachusetts, even then, I mean, the lines were like 50 women in a line just to get into the bathroom, Jeez.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But like I said, like what we put up with either summer 67 or 68, that would not even be allowed. I don't even mean for witnesses, just for anything happening.
Yeah.
That would not be allowed.
I got stories to tell.
Zach, I want to hear Zach's story, Shirley. Let's hear what I'm sure he can.
Let's hear.
I hope he does. I hope he doesn't outdo you, Shirley. But let's see what he says. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're reminding me of things when you talk about this thing where the sisters had to use the men's bathroom. One sister, she had a daughter, and she told me this years later. She said she went in the men's bathroom, because that was what they had. I think they were it was not crowded at this point in time. And she said, oh my goodness, these are some funny looking sinks.
Oh yeah, the urinal.
This thing. It was the urinal. but that New York convention you're talking about, we were there too. We used, it was my mother, my brother and sister. My father was not a witness, so he didn't get caught up in this stuff. But there was a thing called rooming request. And so you also, I guess, you could get a room with people, not necessarily in a hotel, and it was cheaper. That assembly, which was an international assembly, it did not go from Sunday to Sunday that year. It went from Monday to Sunday because on Sunday there was a game going on.
Yes.
But when we got to our place where we were supposed to stay, we had to wait outside because they were not answering the door. And so we sat out in the park. And when we see people coming from church, my mother would say, oh, maybe that's them. So we'd go over and ring the bell to let them know we're here. And we never did get in, but my mother started asking questions. And it turned out that the lady that we were supposed to stay with had died.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So we were kind of stranded, but we had to make other arrangements. That did happen.
Wow.
And I think we were there at that Washington one. And the funny thing that happened there is I remember I was really little, but they had dormitories too. It must have been really crowded. I guess this is the one you're talking about, Shirley, Washington.
Yeah,
they had dormitories.
Yeah.
They had dormitories in the hotel, and my mother stayed in the sisters' dormitory with, I think, with her best friend. There was another sister, and she had kids our age, and so we were staying in the separate dormitories. But a lady my mother studied with also went. And the rules were, at that time, it's kind of new that you had to answer the 80 questions for baptism. And this lady never got to answer the questions with the elders. They never scheduled with her. And on baptism day, when my mother woke up, that lady was disappeared. And it turns out that she went to the assembly, she went to the baptism section, and she got baptized anyway. So she never answered her 80 questions. I still see my mother over there trying to convince her not to get baptized because she hadn't done the questions.
Oh,
She told my mother with her sunglasses on. She said, "Excuse me, I'm trying to listen to the program."
Yeah. Wow, we all got stories to tell, Zach and Shirley. It's unreal. Hey, we get someone else. Go ahead. Give us your thoughts on the convention, sir. Come on.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
This is Michael. How you doing?
Michael, doing good.
Yeah, good. Hey, I was a little kid, but I remember going to the 1958 with my grandfather and mother and my grandmother. So it was a little time ago. And you were talking about talking to the elders. I remember about a month ago, I called in and told you that I talked to Fred France personally. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
When I asked him about yeah. And, we did the building of the Kingdom Hall. We got done early and he was out there. And I said, Mr. France, I said, I'd like to ask you a question about the temple, 587, and you say 607. I studied Jewish history and it's 587. It makes all your calculations wrong. And he just looked at me and said, we have 8 million people, and just kind of smiled and walked away. And I remember driving all the way home that day from Tennessee back to Ohio thinking, that guy knows the truth and he's not going to tell it to anybody.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of disgusting, Michael, isn't it? Yeah, I'm sure they know it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the start of me starting to question the organization. It took about 8 years after that before I finally got out. But yeah, I knew that day that it was probably he knew the truth, but he wasn't going to say anything.
It's a scam. You're right. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, we all have assembly and convention thoughts running through our head, memories, right? How could you not have a memory? I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm going to say that 1969 Peace on Earth convention in Yankee Stadium was one of the 10 worst weeks I've ever spent in my life. I mean that. That was torture. And we had a little baby, and you could bring a carriage then. You could actually, and I was staying at a hotel, I was staying at the Holiday Inn, and we had to get on, we had to lug the carriage, the baby. Baby's only 1 year old, lugging the baby in the carriage in a subway. And you could have a carriage back then. You can't even have a carriage today for the baby. It's very difficult on the mothers. But boy, for 8 days, we sat there in the roasting sun, and it would thunder and storm, and rain would come down, and we'd be soaked, and the bathrooms stunk to the highest heavens. And it was just miserable, miserable. It was like, I can't even tell you how bad it was. It was that bad. Peace on Earth. Well, there was no peace there, I'll tell you. Not only that, I'm going to tell you something. They weren't back then, at least today, people are concerned about your protection. If you're in a big stadium like that, I mean, you couldn't even fill that stadium like that today because it would break all the fire codes. But they had 120,000 people in Yankee Stadium. And, it doesn't hold that many people. I think it only holds about 65,000, if even that. And yet it was like double capacity. That wouldn't be allowed
Rick?
today. Yes.
It was Stink on Earth campaign.
Go ahead, come again, David.
I said it was Stink on campaign that year.
Well, you could say that. Yeah, I heard you. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, you could say it. I mean, you're trying to tie it in with that. I understand, David. All right, so let's. So, any other thoughts you want to share on conventions before we move on? Anybody out there want to tell us about their craziest convention stories?
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
This is Lori. Since you're talking about 1969, my parents took us to Europe for a halfway around the world tour, and we were sitting in the stadium. I was just a little girl, and my dad told my brother to go get us some sodas, and he came back with 6 cans of, it looked like Sprite. It was beer. We sat and drank beer. Assembly.
Well, that would have been nice. I wish we could have done that here,
Yeah, that's way better, huh? But nowadays they have room rates. They have corporate room rates and you're only supposed to stay at the hotels that they suggest. And they give all kinds of rules of what you can and can't do, what you can wear after hours,
Oh, yeah.
It's a little crazy.
It is crazy. Well, thank you, sister.
Rick?
Thank you, sister. Go ahead, sir. Then, Randy?
Rick, this is Zachary. I just wanted to clarify when I said dormitories in D.C., it was year off from the convention you mentioned in New York. The dormitory was like, I guess it was the ballroom. They used the ballrooms, and we paid something like, I think my mother had to pay 50 cents a night a person. And we had to buy the blow-up mats. And so they were something like 50 cents a mat, and that was for sleeping on.
I remember those mats. I do, yeah. Yeah. Isn't that something?
Hey, Rick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, this is Chewy.
Yeah, Chewy.
Hey, I got one in Oklahoma City. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. I was just old enough to where my dad would let me go to the bathroom by myself at the convention. So I walked into the bathroom. It was during lunch. I walked into the bathroom, and the way this bathroom was laid out, you had your urinals, and you had a big trough type thing. It was in a convention. It wasn't dirty or anything. I don't know what other word to use, but it was like a big trough, and it had these things that you could put your hands underneath, and it would wash your hands. It was like a big round circle thing, almost like a swimming pool, but it didn't have any water in it. The water would just flow out when you put your hand underneath you press this button and the water would flow out. Anyway, so that was my first time in that bathroom, and I thought it was a urinal. There was brothers standing around there with their hands in front of them. I thought they were using the bathroom in that thing. They were washing their hands. So I went up there and I just whipped it on out. I didn't have nothing to show. I was 7 or 8 years old. I just let her rip right there in front of everybody. And there's one of the attendants at the bathroom, and he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "You should really do that over there." Oh no, I'm sorry. So that's my convention story.
Well, that's a good convention story. We all got them, Chewy. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Some of the last conventions I went to too, they were rationing toilet paper. They were saying only use so many sheets. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Count it? So unbelievable. All right, who else we got? Anyone else want to talk about their convention stories here on the 6 Screens tonight? Well, if not, we'll move on. Boy, I'll tell you though, conventions they always get us thinking. Boy, I'm glad I don't have to go anymore. I couldn't stand it. I really, really couldn't. I've had enough of that. Boy, that's the one thing that. Well, we'll be talking about that tonight. I don't think Reese is coming on. He might. I'm not sure. He hasn't got a hold of me. Sometimes he comes on. I don't know if he's coming on or not. But anyways, the point I want to make, we do have a program coming up after this. What is it like now that you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness? Is your life different? What do you do? What do you do for work? What do you do for fun? What do you do that's different than when you were Jehovah's Witness? That's coming up next. And we're going to hear from other witnesses as well that recently got out and hear what they have to say on how their lives have changed since they left the Watchtower. All right. Boy, any thoughts? All right, we'll move on. Watchtower publications are scaring children. Do you believe that? I mean,
yeah.
I do. They actually are scaring children. There's only a few pictures in the Watchtower I can remember that was a little frightening to me as a young person. And I can remember that earthquake that was supposed to be Armageddon. And it had a big crack in the ground, right? You guys can remember? And, little kids were falling in and their parents were screaming and yelling in cars. And there was hailstones coming from the sky hitting people. I can remember that
Paradise
picture.
Book.
Yeah, the Paradise Book. Yeah, that's right. And so I can remember that. But, all the time that I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, there were pictures in Watchtower publications that I didn't want to really even share with my children. And even when I would study with them, being a good Jehovah's Witness father, I would sit my family down, I'd study with them. But I remember it was in the Paradise Book, that orange book. And there was a picture in there about how Abraham was going to, sacrifice his son Isaac, and that with a knife, he was going to kill him. And I didn't like that. That was a terrible picture. Jeez, I don't know why the Watchtower would put something like that and then study your kids with it. Jeez, stabbing somebody. I mean, we understand the story and what's behind it, but you didn't have to use that type of an illustration. But I got this book here, and I got this book right here. It's an older publication. It's called The Way to Paradise. And I got the book right here. And I'm going to give one of these books away here tonight. I'm going to give one of these books away. This is a replica, but it's written perfectly, verbatim. And The Way to Paradise, it's an older Jehovah's Witness publication. It goes back to 1924. And this is it. And I came across a picture. I'll show it to you. There it is. Right. Well, there's the book, The Way to Paradise. But I'm going to show you a picture that I came across in this book that's disturbing to me. In fact, it kind of even got me thinking of Stephen Lett with his talk on how babies are enemies of God. But I'm going to show you the picture. It's very disturbing. I don't know why they would even put. There's some very disturbing pictures in Watchtower publications. But let me see if I can't put this up close and see if you can't see it. If you're on YouTube, let me see if you can see it. There's the picture. Okay, so here we have a false god, and he's made out of iron, and it's a big furnace. And so the people are bringing their babies up to the false god, and they're sacrificing them in the furnace. and they're throwing the little babies in the fridge. This is a picture in a Watchtower publication. Now, what is annoying to me is the Watchtower, I don't know why they would put a picture like that in their publications. It's very, very disturbing, as I would say. And the compelling thought behind all of this, and what got me thinking of it, is what Stephen Lett, his talk that he gave in and around June 25th, June 26th, somewhere around there. I don't know what date he gave it. But that talk he gave on little babies are enemies of God, when you have imagery like this, it's not doing any justice to little children. And the Watchtower has constantly put pictures in their publications that demean little children. I mean that. Demean women, demean little children, a lot of nudity, a lot of things that, a Christian publishing company that the Watchtower is supposed to be wouldn't do this. As a matter of fact, the My Bible Studies book, it scared children out of their wits. That book had so many images in there that were very frightening to children. So anyways, God's Channel, that's the Watchtower organization, they're basically, showing pictures to children. I don't know what the motive is. I guess I think what it is they really don't like little children, like Stephen Lett said. They don't. And, they are enemies of God, according to what Stephen Lett said. And then what I think that also causes parents to be a little more abusive to kids when they see articles like this of children being sacrificed and children being thrown into a fire, and showing pictures like this of children falling in earthquakes. I don't see where that is going to give any positive feelings to parents, that they're going to beat the truth into these kids. And even when we were just talking about conventions, I was looking at one of our platforms that were on our video suite, and one person was writing in there what they can remember at these big conventions is a lot of child slapping going on. I mean, really, you guys remember that too, not only conventions, but also in the Kingdom Hall. Slap, slap, bang, bang, kids crying. I've heard that all the time. So I'm just bringing that up tonight. And then I stumbled across that picture, and it really was very, very difficult to see. I was wondering, why would they put a picture like that in there? So anyways, I want to, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, remember Stephen Lett when they started this whole 9 yards with this new video thing that they were doing online. Just remember, he used to have two kids. One kid would stand on one side of him, and it would be boys. Was that him showing them how to come into the witnesses? And then on top of that, Stephen Lett used to talk highly about children when he started off with doing these videos. If you go back and look at all these videos, he was really happy about children. And then he was going back and making these kids listen to what he had to say and grooming them in a certain way to become better witnesses.
Yeah, well, he certainly didn't make anybody happy, David, with what he had to say concerning babies being enemies of God. I'm going to play that clip. I have it here. We're going to talk a little bit about this. We're going to talk a little bit about this because I think it really deserves attention, because the next story I'm going into has to do with something I heard this week. David, just mute yourself if you would. So the next story I'm going to talk about here tonight, it talks about something that was very, 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 again, disturbing, very, very puzzling, in fact. And at the same time, I find it terrible what happened in Ecuador. A young Jehovah's Witness woman stabbed her baby because she saw the devil inside him. Now, all right, we got some music, we got some noise going on in the background there. But anyway, so we have a woman, a Jehovah's Witness woman, killing her baby in Ecuador. Just happened a few days ago. And while it's true that Stephen Lett's speech was shocking, I can't really say that the woman hearing that could have caused her to stab her little baby. But I mean, I don't know what goes on in the minds of someone that would hear that babies are enemies of God. If the person is having some trouble mentally, something like this could actually trigger a person to do such a terrible thing. So words can be very echoing and they can be fragile to minds that are somewhat not right. My minds that are sick, so to speak. So even though Stephen Lett doesn't tell his parents to stab their children, he is talking to people that are very vulnerable, and he doesn't know the mental conditions of people. When you come out and you say in a Watchtower not publication, but a Watchtower broadcast, and you say that, babies are enemies of God, Jehovah, geez, what's that going to do to parents that are on the edge? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to play the tape. I'm going to play the video clip that I have of Stephen Lett. So let's play that, and let's see if we can't. Let me get it up bigger here, and let me see what you guys think, so that you guys can see it on YouTube, you can see it on Facebook, you can hear it on our other networks. But let's play it. Let's listen to Stephen.
Think about it. We're not born as friends of God, because we're born as sinful offspring of Adam. Actually, if you think about it, we're born as enemies of God. Sometimes you'll hear people say of a little baby, look at that little angel. But more accurate would be to say, look at that little enemy of God.
Yeah. So, so that's what Stephen said. Look at that little enemy of God. This is not, I didn't dub that in. This is exactly what he said. But let's just talk about the woman. Let's talk about the woman in Ecuador. Her lawyer requested that her client do a medical psychiatric examination. Well, I think that would be the first place to start. And then they can see what actually took place. But the evaluation, I'm sure, will reveal that she has a mental disorder of some kind, wouldn't you? Yes, I would say that. Stabbing your little baby. Little baby was only born in May, a couple of months old. She stabs him and kills him. So the result is very important. At least the court is relying on something that can come forth and give them some idea on why this mother would do this to her child. Her family, they cannot find an explanation. She's a 25-year-old woman, a mother, and she's now in detention in a prison in Guayaquil, Ecuador. So we know that she stabbed her baby on June 30th, and she never acted violently before this. So Stephen Lett's talk came out just probably about a week before this. So if she heard that talk, and it was pretty much all over the internet, it was right from jw.org, this could be, I mean, I'm not saying that this caused the woman to do this, but I don't think that it would have helped the situation. The emotional shock that people are feeling is really with outrage. And why wouldn't it be? You don't kill a little baby. So she's in prison right now, and she has hearings coming up that will actually determine what her condition was. So the baby was actually born on May 14th, from what I'm reading in this newspaper article. And I'm also seeing that the little boy was taken to the medical center to be treated, but the seriousness of his wounds caused him to die. Just a little baby boy. Now, it does say in the newspaper here that the woman, she was a member in the Jehovah's Witness religion. And she and her son's father, the husband here of the woman, they were Jehovah's Witnesses. They attended the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. And he also belongs to the same, they belong to the same congregation. They fell in love. So this couple fell in love as Jehovah's Witnesses. Now the newspaper asked the branch in Ecuador was a spokesman for the Jehovah's Witnesses in Ecuador. His name was Fernando Brito. So they asked him about the child's death, and if he had any information he could share with the authorities or with the newspaper on why this Jehovah's Witness woman would do this. He says the Jehovah's Witnesses do not protect anyone guilty of a serious crime or even the consequences of their actions. Criminal conduct like this is condemned by the Bible, he stated. When asked in the same way about the young woman's behavior, he replied that the baby's mother is known in the congregation for being an emotionally stable person. So, she didn't have any issues before this. She was known to be a stable person. She gets along with everyone, the spokesman for the witnesses said, but they didn't know she had any mental illness of any kind. So here we have a woman in Ecuador killing her baby, perhaps after listening to Stephen Lett's talk about enemies of God are babies. Could this have had anything to do with it? I don't want to put more legs on this story than there is, but it caught my attention. It kind of all comes in together here. Now, according to the police information, the woman communicated, she was a deaf woman too. She could only speak through sign language. But according to the police information, the woman communicated to the spouse, her husband, that she saw a devil inside the little baby. And that's why she stabbed him. Now, where would she get a thought like that? I mean, where would you get a thought that your little baby has the devil in him? I mean, that talk, I mean, if I was a prosecuting attorney here, which I'm not, but if I was a prosecuting attorney here, I would at least bring this story of Stephen Lett in here. I mean, maybe I'm making a stretch, but, a baby being an enemy of Jehovah, and she's telling her husband she stabbed the little baby and killed him because there was a devil inside him. I mean, you guys, you be the jury. I mean, I'm just throwing it out on the table here. Maybe I'm going a little too far with this, but I'm just thinking that there's too many, let me put it this way to you. I'm not going to say coincidence, but there's some circumstances here that I think have to be examined. I don't think this can just slide out the back door. And, the witnesses in past history have been accused at times in court cases for inciting strange behavior. Is this another event where the witnesses incited strange behavior? What do you think? I'd like to hear from you guys. Go ahead, say hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. It's Annie again.
Yes, Annie.
Hi. It's a very, very, very sad and sickening, actually, story. And many women, have postpartum depression when they have a baby, and that in itself is already very problematic for some women, and there have been cases like that I've read about. And so Stephen, that speech could have triggered something in her, I don't know the woman, but there's another thought I had that I find the timing of her speech, I mean, this is off the wall maybe, but I find the timing of his speech also very weird because, there's the abortion debate going on recently, and it made me wonder, what if there was also a connection to him giving a speech like that. Like, I don't trust anything that the Watchtower says, These are just some of my thoughts.
Well, thank you, Annie. I mean, those are good thoughts. I mean, my thoughts might be running a little ahead. I mean, it could have just been that's what happened. People do heinous acts like that, but it does kind of, the timing here is what's got me concerned. I'm not trying to play detective on all of this, but the timing has me concerned. And when you have a talk given by a governing body member saying that little babies are enemies of Jehovah, that's going to introduce more spankings and more disciplinary actions on parents' parts to beat the truth into their kids. This should,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this should never be. This should never be brought up. I don't know why the Watchtower takes the liberty to do this, but it can create some serious problems, Annie. Really.
Yeah, and it's very reprehensible, to say the least, to even say something like that. We shouldn't even be allowed to say things like that legally, in my opinion. And quite frankly, yeah, and it can set some people off, I guess, if they're already mentally unstable and things like that. Anyway, these were my thoughts on that.
Oh, those are good thoughts. Those are good thoughts, Annie, and thank you for expressing yourself. I mean, I wasn't even going to talk about this tonight, but I said no, because it has to be talked about. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Rick, my son is hearing impaired and everything, and I understand sign language. I do sign language. I can go up to level 3 sign language interpreter for my son, and with the sign language, and certain words can only be said a certain way, and maybe she was told a certain way that her baby was an act of the devil or something, because you have a limited amount of words that you can say in sign language to a person to get a point across. Okay.
I see what you're saying, David. So, so this woman really couldn't have heard "let's talk," but someone could have told her about the talk in sign and could have made it more egregious than it is, right? Worse.
Yeah. I mean, you have a limited amount of sign language to bring your point across to someone. And her just having a baby, and just like the other lady said, that she had all this other pressure on her just having this baby, and already having a mental state of being fragile already, and having it assigned to you in a different way, because we can talk and say this stuff, but in sign language it's different to another deaf person or hard hearing person.
Well, I didn't even think of that. Thank you for bringing another angle in, David. Now that gives a little more insight into it. It could have been something that the sign person suggested that was a little more for her heart, a little harder for her to digest. A terrible situation. So we do feel for the parents, we really do, and we feel for the baby. We feel for everybody involved. There's a real tragedy. But what got my attention too is when, the police report says that the woman said that there was a devil inside the baby. That's in the timing here is what's got me. I don't want to be Professor Cousteau here, but really, when you stop and think about it, something's a little weird about the whole thing. The timing is what's really melting this story together. Anybody else out there, you want to say something? You're on JW World News. Like to hear what you have to say. Maybe we'll just read more into it than there is. Go ahead, you're on with us.
It has a when you
go ahead, sister, and then we'll go with Constance. Go ahead, sister, first.
There was a very creepy tone that when you played that tape, I don't know if it just sounds worse when you played it over your broadcast, but it sounded really creepy, like a creepy movie. And it has a very strange, and then just listening to all this, it has a very Charles Manson-y kind of feel to it. And so I think that the Watchtower should at the very least be held somewhat accountable for not the timing, but I mean, it is probably, it may be coincidental, but I think that it sounds to me a bit of a hate crime against children. And with their history of pedophilia, they're just setting the future generation of these children in the Watchtower to be more abused and accepting abuse than ever before. Thank you, Rick.
Well, thank you, Mary. Okay, Constance, you're on next. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say, Rick, a lot of great comments with regards to this. You know, I think to myself, why would Watchtower be bringing this up, you know, Stephen Lett, with regards to this issue right now? And, excuse me, I'm in agreement with Annie, you know, Roe versus Wade and all that. I mean, when I was one thing I really did love about being a witness was it was very family oriented. There was a lot of family, you know, Bible principles, and you just felt that cohesion. But, you know, the organization is so very different today. In fact, yesterday, Rick, would have been 50 years when I got baptized as a witness. So I've been out a long time, Rick. You know, and I'm glad to be out. But what I was going to say is, what's interesting is this lady, this sister that was in Ecuador, you know, Latinos are very, very family oriented. And it sounds like she had some very serious psychiatric issues. And, you know, Watchtower has plenty of mentally ill people in there. I'm not knocking them. I'm just speaking the truth. And, you know, Rick, I just wanted to say the postpartum, I think that was a big part of it. But I just want to say this. It's a very, very horrific story. When I worked at Laguna Honda Hospital in San Francisco in social services, and I'll make it brief, Rick. But anyway, we had, you know, several of us social workers there. And one of the social workers, his name was Leroy. And Leroy had a niece. It was his sister's daughter, okay? And she was a mother of 4. I'll never forget this story, Rick. Oh, my gosh, I will never forget this story. Anyway, what ended up happening is she had 4 little girls that were like 9, 7, 5, and say 2 or 3. And they were all little girls. And apparently she had some psychiatric issues. And she gave each of her little girls some chocolate milk, and then she drowned each one of them in the bathtub, one by one, all 4. She murdered all 4 of them. And Leroy, you know, I worked with Leroy, and his sister and his family were calling, and anyway, she was up for murder charges, you know, like it was all premeditated. And they were terrified that she was going to have the death penalty. And it just happened to be an African-American family. But anyway, you know, Leroy was such a wonderful person. It was like, I know he had so much guilt with all this, Rick. I mean, being a social worker and with all the counseling background that he had, you know, he probably thought, how in the heck did I miss this with my own family? So they hired like the most expensive attorney they could, you know, so that, and they were a very wealthy family too, but they hired the most expensive attorney they could hire so she wouldn't get the death penalty. But I'll never forget that. I know it destroyed Leroy. I know it was horrific. And, you know, some women just snap, Rick. They just, that postpartum depression, and then, you know, it just happens. It's really unfortunate. But, you know, you tied this in with Watchtower, okay? Take that equation and tie it in with Watchtower, that now Stephen Lett has this talk on babies are enemies of God. Well, you know, Proverbs 18:21, what? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. You know, we need to be really mindful of how powerful our words are. And this, you know, what Stephen Lett, look at the timing of when he said it, when she gave birth, and then when she murdered her baby. And I do hold them accountable. I do. So it's very, very sad. And I think the organization is very destructive for families. So thank you, Rick.
Was Leroy a witness? Was Leroy a witness?
No, honey. No, Leroy was not a witness. Not a witness. He was a co-worker of mine in San Francisco. But I can guarantee you it's changed his life, the whole family's life, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just wondering. Yeah, I had a comment too. This is Michael again.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, the other lady that said how almost demonic Stephen Lett's facial expressions was. The way he said it, the tone, the facial expressions. That's one of the first things I noticed when I seen it. It almost looked demonic. And another thing that we could take into consideration, a lot of families, young people are leaving the organization. Their parents are staying in. And then with the shunning incidents, it'll make the parents easier to shun the children if they knew they were enemies of God. That's an enemy of God, so I don't need to talk to them anymore. It'd make them easier for that. That's one mental aspect that he could play on that.
Well, that's another thought. That's another good thought, Michael, that you can bring into the equation here, and that makes sense. I'm gonna play this clip again. I'm gonna play this clip again because I listen closely now. You listen to the clip. It's only about 11 seconds long, but listen to what he says. Let's share the clip. Let me get it up and let's play it.
You hear people say of a little baby, look at that little angel. But more accurate would be to say, look at that little enemy of God.
All right. I mean, so now what are you going to do? You're a mother already suffering from depression.
I've got a problem that I'm pretty sure you can help me with.
Hold on one second. So you got a mother that's suffering from depression. Now, this was a convention talk. So, it's spreading around as something that wasn't hidden on jw.org. This was a convention talk, so everyone heard it. And I'm sure it filtered down to her. And I like what Mary said. And I had to go back and take a look at that tape once again. And I could see that, it's very forthright, stated right there. Look at the little baby. Some think he's an angel of God. He's not. He's an enemy. Look at that. I can't believe it. Well, you're on JW World News. I mean, you guys are getting a mouthful tonight, right? I mean, I don't want to overload your donkey, but go ahead. You're on with us.
Hi, it's Apostle Linda James.
Yes, Linda.
I agree with that Mark before, talking about how easily it would be to shun someone and then you consider them an enemy of God. I do believe that was said to affect the bond between parents and children. And that's what I was talking about last week. But I want to explain that postpartum depression is very different than an ordinary depression. I struggle with ordinary clinical depression. But like I read the book when Brooke Shields had postpartum depression. So she would have visions of throwing her baby up against the wall. Very outlandish, hurt the child kind of stuff. And sometimes parents will commit suicide when they're in that place of post. You have these traumatic visions, more so than an ordinary person that has clinical depression. And another thing was, I wanted to ask you if the article stated her age.
She was 25 years old.
Okay, so from what I understand, people that develop or discover that they are that they have paranoid schizophrenia, they will have usually their first episode with right about that time, between 20 and 25. So that might have kicked in. And if that people that I know that have had schizophrenia, they really tap into that whole biblical stuff about the Holy Spirit won't hear me or I'm going to die because, very biblical. They're very scared about stuff about how God views them and stuff. So I can understand that this timing could have contributed to if she was having her first episode of paranoid schizophrenia. Just saying, that's, it just seems so outlandish.
Well, it does, Linda.
And
Really,
very different from the regular behavior.
Yeah, it's something else. It's a terrible story. Listen, you might be coming on. Hold on one second, Linda. You might be coming on around 11 o'clock tonight, Linda. How would that be?
Okay, I will start getting ready earlier.
Because I don't think
I was thinking too when you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did hear you talk about. You don't think Reese is coming in? That makes sense. When I heard Brother Letts say, look at that little angel. The opposite of angel is devil. When we think angel and we think opposite, it's devil. So our brains automatically go to devil rather than enemy of God. And we equate enemy of God. In that context, I think we want to hear, angel and devils, angels and devils, or, that's just something I picked up on that last clip that you played this last time. So yeah, I'll be ready earlier. Thank you, Rick.
All right, thank you very much. That's a pasta babe. She's coming on with a program tonight around 11 o'clock. Yeah, healing after the Watchtower, Linda James. Okay, next caller, I think it was Susan.
Oh, well, Linda kind of mentioned it, but they use this MK Ultra mind control, and he's pointing out, look, this is not a little angel, it is and he never says demon, does he? Ever, not once. But your mind automatically goes to the word demon, and they know that. That's planned behavior for you to draw that conclusion yourself. So he can't ever be accused of saying children are demons or babies are demonized. He's never said that ever. But we conclude that because of the way they're getting you to think with your mind. And so, okay, if he's not an angel, he's a devil. And you know how fearful witnesses are of everything's demonized. The fireplace is demonized. This doll is demonized. If you shop at a secondhand store, consignment store, all the stuff you buy is demonized. Doesn't matter. But they throw that around a lot. So it's just too bad that they can get away with that, because they really should be held accountable for what they just said.
Yeah, I mean, in a court of law, it would be hard, Susan, but, there's enough circumstantial evidence, you could say, even though it's not, it's not like he caused her to do it, but, sometimes people can be held accountable for things they encourage others to do. So let's see what happens.
Well, that's just like Linda was saying. You're drawing your own conclusion, though he never said it. And that's this MK Ultra mind control, where they use sentence structure and syntax to get you to draw conclusions that they never said, but they know you're going to conclude that way.
Yeah, it's terrible. Let's play a little more. Let me play another sound clip, Greg. Another sound clip. Let's see if he says a little bit more here. Let's listen a little bit. Let's listen in.
One of my viewers reached out.
Let's see. Well, that's not working. Well, let's let that one go. Yeah, I just want to play it again, but we'll work on it again probably next week. But anyways, you're on 6 screens. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, it's Michael again. Just what the sister just said, or the lady just said. I when I was talking to my elder friend, I told him that Stephen Letts said, "The devil, look at the angel, look at that little devil." I could have swore Stephen Letts said, "Look at that little devil," and maybe I just did. What this lady just said, maybe I just equated little devil to my mind and then told my older friend what Stephen Letts said. I was upset about it, called the babies devils, and he said he didn't say devils, but I could have swore he did. So,
well, that's how your mind works. That's how your mind works.
Yeah.
And Susan made a good point with that. She's been doing a lot of studying on the culture lately, so that was information that could your mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Rick. This is Joe and Fran. We kind of got in late tonight, so we missed part of what you were talking about, the young mother.
Yes.
Can you just update us what happened? We didn't catch the whole story.
Oh, sure. We had in Ecuador, just in the last couple of days, a young 25-year-old Jehovah's Witness mother who had a little baby boy in May. She stabbed and killed a little baby boy. And yeah, so, they're not sure why. She never had any emotional problems, any difficulties, any mental problems, but she had the little baby and killed him. And she stabbed.
Did you say something about sign language?
Yeah, she was a deaf sister. And so she had evidently, she had to talk in sign. But I mean, I'm not even, I don't want it to go on the record that I even know she heard of Stephen Letts talk. I just I just brought this up for the sake of, because it got my attention when I was going over the news this week, that, gee, that's kind of ironic that here we have Stephen Lett giving a talk on how babies aren't little angels, they're enemies of God. And then, this woman has the little baby boy, it's a convention talk. And if she heard something like that between her postpartum disorders and what have you, you could go into some type of your thought process could be mixed up,
Oh, horrible. Yeah. And the deaf, I know our daughter and son-in-law, they have dealt with the deaf, and they've been in deaf congregations. And so they think differently. They act differently. They don't understand the same way that we understand. It's totally different.
So that's what we've been talking about. But I'm glad you guys called in. I was going to call you guys today, but I thought you'd show up here tonight.
Yeah,
Right.
we were a little bit late.
Yeah.
We had some work to do.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. You did that. But if you guys can hang in for a little bit tonight, I'd like to bring you on. And the next, we're going to be talking the next program. We're going to be talking all about, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and how it's different for them than being a Jehovah's Witness. So that's our next program tonight. So if you guys can hang in for a little bit, we'll bring you right on. Okay. Good.
We'll be on.
Ah, very good. Very good, friend. You made my day, you and Joe. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. So there you go. There you go. So that's good. So these are things that are going on. I don't want to, and listen, if you're listening in here, don't say that Rick Ferrin said that Stephen Lett was the cause of the baby's murder. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm not. I'm throwing it out. You're my friends. You get around the couch, you sit around, you talk. That's all I'm doing. I can't indict Stephen Lett here, but it seems like it's very strange. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. Not trying to sensationalize anything here, but man, I'm telling you, I did this. You guys think this is an easy job. How would you like to be checking everything in the world out about Jehovah's Witnesses? Jace, I've been out of this organization, but I got to be dragged back into all this malarkey. But that's what I'm finding. Stuff like this is really, And when I started going over the news this week, I'm saying, man, something's not passing the smell test here. This is not coming together the way it should. It's too ironic that it's happening all in the same week. So that's what got me thinking. That's all. I mean, I'm not ready to bring the guy into prosecuting him in Ecuador, but I mean, something should be said. And you're going to hear more about it. You'll hear more about it. So anyways, that's what's going on. Let's see what else we got. I don't think Reese is coming on. Reese, are you on there with us tonight? I mean, I'm not sure where you are. I haven't been in contact with you. We missed you. Last couple of weeks you were on, but we haven't been in touch with Reese. But I'm not going to, he's his own man and he wants to come on. That's fine. He has a good audience here. And I know people are disappointed he's not on, but it looks like we're going to proceed without the Watchtower and the cult connection tonight. So we're going to stay with a program that I put together because, many times I'm not sure. It's unpredictable here at the Sixth Screen. So I have to have programs ready. I just can't sit here and go, blah, 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 blah. So I got to put things together here so that there's some continuity to what we do with the Sixth Screens. So stay with us. We'll have a program coming up, and I'm not done with the news yet. So let's continue on with the news. I still have some articles here I wanted to discuss. Let me get in here and see what we missed. A couple of things I missed here tonight, I know. I'm going to go back here. We talked about the woman that murdered the baby. We talked about how, protests. And let me go with that. This really got my attention, folks. This week, protests. I was one of the first. I'm not boasting. Here. I'm not patting myself on the back. But I was one of the first ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to protest. Did you know that? Oh, yeah. I wasn't the first, but I was one of the first. Bill Bowen, he protested before me. And also there was a group of people who were protesters that went to the Witnesses Now for Jesus convention years ago. But I love to protest. In fact, I'll tell you what, that's one of my favorite things to do. But now I see more and more people are becoming activists and they're protesting out in front of Kingdom Halls all around the world, including branch offices. Yeah. So I'm finding that very, very fascinating because, protesting always wasn't in. A lot of people didn't like it. Rick, you're feeding into their persecution complex. Don't do that. Don't protest. That's not a good thing to do. Well, I beg to differ. I really, really do, because I'll tell you all the protests that I got involved with, and I do it at the Kingdom Hall, I do it at convention centers, and I would find that, people would stop and listen and read your signs. So it wasn't always crazy. So I love it, and I'll be doing more protesting too in the near future. But now I see I'm going to get this up so you can at least hear it. It's in Chile. They're protesting in Chile. They're protesting in Panama. They're protesting in Mexico. So they're starting to protest. Isn't that wonderful? And this is in front of the branch offices, if you can believe that, of these countries. So protesting is getting to be quite good now. People are here. I'm going to play it. So let's play a little bit of it. You'll hear it if you're on. It's in Spanish, but you'll see it if you're on the 6 screens. You'll at least see the video. If you're on YouTube, you'll see it. So let's play a little bit, and you'll be able to see it. Okay, let's do it right now. Well, first they play a commercial, and then you get
reconozco que me equivoqué al pensar que esto sería un fracaso. No, fue un éxito. No pensaba asistir hasta que los hermanos Jorge y Roberto me invitaron a participar junto con mi esposa. Mi intención era solamente trabajar en la logística, pero también pude participar, que no lo pensaba hacer, dando testimonios y organizando un poquito para que los hermanos también...
If you can understand Spanish, you probably can understand what they're saying, but I don't understand Spanish, but that's in Chile. So they're broadcasting, or at least protesting and broadcasting on YouTube, their protest in front of it looks like the Bethel home in Chile, the branch office, and also in Mexico, and also in Panama. Boy, I'll tell you what, I'm so glad to hear that so many people are now getting out and really voicing their thoughts about the Watchtower organization. Yeah, I like that a lot. So then I came across this other story that got my attention this week, and it has to do, let me see if I can't find that story. It has to do with the Ring doorbells. You guys know what they are? Those Ring doorbells that you have a camera on the doorbell, and when someone rings the doorbell, you can see who it is. That's kind of a neat thing, right? Well, that's kind of high technology. A lot of people have the Ring doorbells, and the Jehovah's Witnesses, well, they ran into some problems with it prior to them stopping service house to house. But this one goes back a couple of years ago before they stopped because of the pandemic. And I thought this was really interesting. A Ring doorbell got a Jehovah's Witness man in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. I'm going to play you the video. There's a video that I want to play you, and you'll hear it. But this goes back before the witnesses. This goes back before the witnesses stopped preaching door to door. So they were doing it. And what happens? A Jehovah's Witness went up to a door, and he knocked on the door, and he said he wanted to speak to the daughter in the house. And I'm just gonna mute a couple of people on here right now. We're just gonna mute some people. I got some background noise going here right now. So let me see if I can't mute that. All right. We'll mute that. And then what we'll do is I can do this story. So the Ring doorbell, it caught a Jehovah's Witness man. He was asking for the daughter. Evidently they contacted, or he knew there was a girl in the home that was interested in the witness message. So he went to the door and he asked to speak to the daughter. And it really freaked the mother out. And she was so upset that a Jehovah's Witness, came to her door. And the thing that concerned the mother the most was that initially he refused to identify which group he was from. He didn't say he was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, any parent, imagine some strange man, knocking on your door and asking for your daughter by name. Wouldn't that freak you out too? I mean, really, that got this woman really upset. She had this 15-year-old daughter, and when asked what why he was contacting the young girl, he went lame. He didn't say anything at all, and he wouldn't even share any thoughts at all with her. So this got the woman upset. She contacted a news station. Well, listen to what the news station has to say. I believe it's out of Washington. I'm not sure, but I think it's out of Washington State. So listen to what the news station had to say. Let me put this up so you guys can see it in full mode. And here we go right now. This is a picture from the Ring doorbell, a camera going, and you'll hear what they said.
You touch me again and I'll call the police.
A Monroe mom confronts a stranger who comes to her house asking for her daughter by name. And tonight we got to the bottom of this bizarre interaction. And Cairo 7's Jessica O'Lord, now the police are getting involved.
A man and a woman walked up to this home in Monroe on Thursday. They rung this doorbell, telling the person inside that they wanted to share some words in the Bible. They specifically asked for a 15-year-old girl who lives here by name, and that's concerning a lot of parents tonight.
As a parent, red flags are going just crazy.
Susan Johnson says you might have red flags too if someone came to your door saying this.
We just looking for. Oh, we're just share some wonderful thoughts with her from the Bible and share our latest magazine with her.
But he never actually says who he's with.
My concern came in that he didn't identify where he was from.
Yet he knew the name of Susan's 15-year-old daughter. That really put this mom on edge.
It scares me for my daughter. She's scared. She doesn't know how he got her name and address.
So Susan found that man.
He actually slapped me.
And confronted him at his church at Kingdom Hall.
Listen, I'll tell you.
You touch me again and I'll call the police. Where'd you get my daughter's name and address?
In this video, he refuses to answer her questions.
You didn't identify where you were from.
I did.
No, you didn't.
We took these videos to Jehovah's Witnesses officials in Seattle, and they confirmed this man is a member.
Have a stranger at his door asking for his daughter by name without readily identifying himself, I would be concerned as well.
Church leaders say they have since talked to him about his door-to-door ministry.
It's never our intention when carrying out our ministry to be intrusive.
Now Monroe police are also investigating. Susan just can't figure out why he didn't say where he was from in the first place.
And there is something diabolically wrong with someone who does not do that.
And tonight we learned that it is standard for Jehovah's Witnesses to do door-to-door ministries in neighborhoods like this, but we're told that they typically have to identify themselves and also state why they are there, unlike what we saw happen in Monroe last week. Reporting live in Seattle tonight, Jessica O, Cairo 7 News.
Well, there you go. I don't know if you guys saw it on our videos on our platform tonight on YouTube. Maybe you didn't, but it's okay. You heard it anyways. So here we have a parent all upset. Man comes to the door. You heard the story, but you'd be concerned too, wouldn't you? But did we identify ourselves? That's what I'm thinking. How did you identify yourself when you going to door as I did? And I always thought it was kind of crazy because even in the service meetings when we used to go over how to conduct yourself going door to door, you would always, practice it. You get up on stage and say, "Hi, my name's Rick Farron. I'm one of I would say I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses," but they used to kind of reprimand me for that. They wanted me not to really say that at first. So you had to say, "I'm doing a volunteer work," right? I'm doing a volunteer work. And we're in a missionary work or something along those lines. But they didn't really want you to identify yourself at first as being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And you'd say, "We're doing a volunteer work. We're talking to your neighbors and yourself." And you bring up some scary story that happened during the week. And you never admit that you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And then you would, kind of sink that into the conversation afterwards. I got thinking, how courageous really are Jehovah's Witnesses? I mean, we know they had a song. Remember the song they had? I'm going to play a little portion of the song. And they were so proud to say that they were so fearless. Well, you let me know what the name of the song is, and I'm going to give you a free book. The first one that can let me know what the name of this song is, I'm going to give you a free book here tonight. So let's see if you know the name of this song. Okay, who knows the song?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's Kim.
Kim, what's the name of the song?
It's Kim.
Who is it?
Oh my God. We're Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's
That was one of my favorite songs.
You got it, Kim. You won the book.
Yay! That was one of my favorite songs.
Is that right? Well, you won the book.
Yes.
So I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 2 books. I'll give you another book free. Or if you can't answer, somebody else can. I got some beautiful reproduction of old publications I'll send you. But here's what we got. I'm looking for, can you give me the first stanza? Can you give me the first verses of that song?
We're Jehovah's Witnesses. We speak out in fear.
Well, that's part of it, but well, you sing. You sing pretty good. All right. Well, I'm gonna give you the book. You email me. You email me at jwworldnews@gmail.com. Say, this is Kim. Give me a give me your address.
Wait, I don't. Isn't have. Oh
Huh?
God. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to go to the library because my computer at home is not working. I guess I'm gonna have to go to the library.
Well, I mean, your computer working? I'll send you an email. I'll send you an e-copy.
No, my computer at home is not working.
All right. Well,
I guess I'm gonna have to go.
well,
to
when you can
the
when
library.
when your computer's working, let me know. I'll still send you the book. Okay. Let me know. Okay. We have somebody else who wants to come in. Go ahead, sir.
I've got the first 2 stanzas, Rick.
You got okay. Well, you could get the. Go ahead.
Men make gods of wood and stone, but the true God they've not known.
Well, there you go.
We're-
That's
we're
it.
Jehovah.
All right. So who is this? Is this Joe?
Joe.
Oh, I didn't recognize. Okay, Joe. Well, I'm gonna get you to. I got a nice book. I'm gonna send you. I got I got a really nice book. You like the Millions Now Living Will Never Die book?
Oh my goodness. Oh sure.
All right. Well, you write me at jwworldnews@gmail.com. jwworldnews@gmail.com. Give me your address. Say, hey, this is Joe, and I'll get the book out to you. Okay?
You're thanks, Rick.
What a parent.
Yes.
I have a question.
You have a
Go ahead.
you have a beautiful voice.
Who has
You
a?
sang it beautifully.
Well, she does. No, in fact, Kim, I'll tell you what we're going to do for you, Kim. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a Dunkin' Donuts card.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to give you because they want you to sing. I was going to say the same thing. They're saying that you have a beautiful voice.
Oh my God.
So why don't you do
No, I
this?
was going to say, is it okay if I give you my address over the phone? I don't mind.
Okay, give me your address over the phone. I mean, I don't want anyone stalking you or anything. I don't want to.
I'm okay. No, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
I mean, you're all right with that. All right, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm okay with that.
Well, give me your address. Go ahead.
It's 21.
21.
24.
24.
Okay. Aldrin Road. ALVRIN.
ALVIN. Okay, Alvine.
No. Aldrin. ALDRIN. Aldrin.
Boy, I'll tell you, I'm having a hard time with that. I know I have a real thick accent.
It's A as an apple, L as a Larry,
Yeah.
D as a dog,
Yeah.
yeah, R as a road,
Yeah.
I as in India, and
Yeah.
N as in Nancy.
All right.
Aldrin.
Aldrin. Okay, good. I got you. Go ahead.
Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, the apartment number is 1A as an apple,
Okay.
and that's in Ocean. OCEAN, Ocean, New Jersey.
Ocean, New Jersey. Okay, give me the zip.
07712.
07112.
07712.
All right, 712. Okay, good. All right, listen, I'm also if
Did
you
you get it right? It's 07712.
07712.
7. Yeah.
27. Okay, I got you. All right. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw in. I got a nice little Dunkin' Donuts card for you as well. If you want to sing us some of the song, I'll. Because you sounded good. I'd like to have you.
Oh my
I'd like
God.
so. Why don't you? I mean, you can just kind of make the verses up. Men make gods of wood and stone, but the true
Yes,
God
but
they've
the
not
true
known.
God
He
they
is.
not know.
All right. Well, yeah. Just go ahead. Go ahead and sing a little bit. That'll get you the Dunkin' Donuts card too. Let's make it
Oh my
worth
God,
our.
I like so me the other song.
All right, here we go. Here we go. We got Kim. We got Kim coming in from Ocean, New Jersey. Here is Kim on our program tonight. Go ahead, Kim.
It is the golden song of the truth of things not known.
Well, we got it. I mean, but the whole point why I'm bringing this song up.
Just cannot see what the future says away.
There you go. Well, you're a real sport. You're a real sport. I'll get you a Dunkin' Donuts card too. But you know what? The reason, the reason why I even bring this up tonight is, okay, so we got this guy going door to door up in Washington State. He's not identifying who he is. He's supposed to say anything, but he's one of Jehovah's Witnesses. He's doing a volunteer work, a Bible work, whatever we used to say. They didn't want us to say that we were Jehovah's Witnesses, but why not? I mean, they had this song, we're Jehovah's Witnesses, men made of stone, men made of wood and stone, and we're fearless and all of that. We're Jehovah's Witnesses. We speak out in fearlessness. Well, how are you speaking out in fearlessness when you don't even identify to the household who you are? So that's the reason why I bring this up. Well, Kim, you're a real sport. Really, really. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Is that the first thing you ever won, Kim?
With you? Yes.
All right, there you go. Well, we're glad to have you listening.
I remember back in the day when you used to do it like years ago. You used to do this every Saturday, but
trivia.
like whoever can get the most answer right, somebody will get a gift.
Yeah, the trivia programs. We'll do those again.
Yeah, the trivia. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you for listening in tonight.
Oh, I used to love the trivia programs. Oh my God, I used to love it.
There you go. Well, we'll do it again. All right. So, anyways, you're with us tonight. I'm just wondering. I'm going to ask Reese one more time. Are you out there, Reese? Is Reese out there tonight? If you are, Reese, and listening to the program, go ahead and say hello to us. I'm not sure. I hear a bunch of clicking and clacking, but I'm not sure. But anyways, if he does come on even a little while, we'll make room for him. But if not, we're going to continue on. We're going to have some fun here tonight. I think I covered all my stories. So now you're right up to date on what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. And then thank all of you guys for coming in and helping me tonight and speaking up. I think it was wonderful. We had a lot of participation. So I want to thank everyone that came in and spoke up and talked. And don't you guys be bashful either. Even you guys on YouTube and the video suite. I know we had some people coming in tonight from the video suite. But if you're on YouTube and Facebook, and why don't you come in? We put the telephone number up so you can see it. Come in and say hello to us. That's what really makes the program. I could sit here all night long and blow V8 and tell you this, that, and everything else. But isn't it fun when we hear people come in and we can talk with them like we're all sitting around a big couch somewhere? Isn't that nice? I think that's wonderful. So anyways, that was the news for tonight. I hope you liked it. I mean, every time I do the news, I'm really finding that, boy, the Watchtower is getting more and more tarnished every week. They are getting a bad image. But what we'll do, we'll continue this program right on Facebook. So stay with us. We're not even going to disconnect. We'll just stay on with this program. Reese evidently will not be on tonight. Watchtower Occult Connection will not be on tonight. But we're going to talk. We're going to open lines up. We're going to talk. We're going to have some fun. Why can't we just let our hair down and really enjoy each other's company here tonight? I think we can do that. There's no reason why we can't. But what I wanted to do basically to start the program off is I wanted to talk about the world of the ex-Jehovah's Witness. And that is for the most part, most of us that are listening in tonight. We are now out of the witness organization, maybe not fully. Some of us still might be PMOs. Yeah, some of us might be PMOs still, but we are wiggling our way loose. But I would like to know what's different now that you are an ex-witness versus when you were a staunch Jehovah's Witness. I mean, my life is different. Boy, I feel like it was like another life. I really, really do feel that. I feel like when I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, that was like another life I had. It's so surreal when I stop and think about it. It actually gives me goosebumps sometimes thinking about how irritating it was being one of Jehovah's Witnesses and constantly having to answer for every single thing you did, everything you did during the day. The TV that you'd watch, the books you'd read, the jokes you'd tell, the movies you would see. I mean, all of this, you had to kind of, run it by the jury in your mind, whether it was okay or not to do anything. And boy, I tell you, that was really troubling. But now I feel free. You can basically do whatever you want to do. You want to go fishing on a Saturday, even though I don't fish, but I'm just saying for those that do. You want to go fishing on a Saturday, that's fine. You want to go to the fair, you want to go to a parade, look at all the things you can do, but you could not do as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, we're going to have a couple come on, Joe and Fran. Now, they have been coming on for the last couple of weeks here. They brought their brother on last week, their brother-in-law, I guess he was. And boy, I'll tell you, he was a really smart man, and he told us a lot about how the world and how people view Jehovah's Witnesses without ever being one. And I mean, he had a lot of words to share with us. But we got Fran and Joe on with us now. I think you're on, Joe. Go ahead and let me just make sure. Speak up. Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Hi, Rick.
Yes.
Good to hear you and everyone else.
Wow, we're glad. Glad you're on.
Thank you. I was thinking about what I would either tell friends or have Fran tell friends, because Fran was hanging around the friends a little longer than I was. And I said, if they ask about me, just tell them I'm trying to get my schedule in control, because the schedule was totally controlled by the organization. It controlled my mind. It controlled the time that I spent on things. I was always rushing from one thing to the next. And it was just too unnatural. And it was for too long. It's way too long. So that's the one most powerful thing. I had my schedule back, and I was able to control that. Now, as human beings, you don't control your schedule if you're in prison. In prison, they control your schedule. If you're a child in grade school or high school, basically they control your schedule. But past that, if we're adults, we start controlling our schedule. And that's a thing we gave up in that cult, is letting them control the schedule.
So you're saying that when you were a Jehovah's Witness, everything was on a schedule?
Oh my goodness, everything's scheduled. Absolutely. Now, in other words, if you're going to take it seriously, you're going to schedule your life totally theocratically. I mean, and that, and see, that's something that, frankly, that's the other side of the problem. The one side of the problem is that the society is willing and wants to control and require a person to do all these things. Well, the other side of it is the person has to agree to that, and they have to comply. And you have to ask yourself, well, why did I comply? What was so important that I chose to comply with someone making up my schedule for me? And I have to look back and just realize that it was like a snare, because they were offering something that, well, I suppose I would have wanted to, quote unquote, live forever in a paradise on earth, which I'd never heard before. I had never heard that before the witnesses, and I thought that was unusual.
Let's give some examples. So, in other words, you said you're on a schedule. You said you had to comply. So let's put yourself back in the witness world, Joe. So, what was the schedule that you were on?
Well, I mean, the good witness would consider the text in the morning. You consider the daily text. And then maybe if you have a young family, you can have a discussion.
We studied with the children.
Oh, we studied with the children every night. We had 4 children. So every night, basically, we were studying.
We were either having personal study with them or studying for the meeting.
Yeah. No, it's a two-sided coin. It's the society that desires to control people's lives and use them as slaves, and then the other side, it's the individual who agrees to be enslaved because they think they've got something special coming. It's a real snare.
Yeah.
No truer words were spoken than Rutherford, who said that religion is a snare and a racket. No truer words. Those are the most true words I've ever heard.
Yeah. So now let us fast forward here. Now that you and Fran are out of the organization, or at least starting to move aside from it, how would you say your life is different now in the ex-Jehovah's Witness world than it was in that world?
Well, we don't have to prepare for meetings, for goodness sake. You don't. There's not we don't have to consider a text. No, we still have spiritual or Bible discussions, but it's not according to someone's schedule and for a book that directs it. And then, of course, they always direct the discussion according to the society. It's not just strictly scriptural. It's theocratic, society-oriented.
And Fran, let me ask you, Fran. Let me ask you, Fran. Now you tell me now that you're. And let me just give the audience a little understanding here. You guys came out last December, I believe, to 2021, right?
Yes.
So you've been out since December. So we're looking at we're looking here at say 8 months. So what has changed in your world, Fran, in the last 8 months?
Well, I don't prepare for meetings, and I'm still PMO, so I still put our Zoom meeting on because we still have 4 grown children that have lightly shunned us, but we're not disfellowshipped. We haven't disassociated, so we are PMO. Joe doesn't show his face on camera or comment or anything, but every once in a while I'll do something just to say I'm here. But it's funny because, and we still have association with the friends because we have a business and they come in. And it was funny yesterday, the sister said something about the Bible reading, and I didn't know what the Bible reading was. And then she goes on, and if you listen, if you know it, you can pick it right up. And she was talking about Ehud. And when he got stabbed.
That was disgusting.
Yeah, so you're still listening in on Zoom then for a little bit, not entirely, but
little bit.
You put it on.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how would you, I mean, we are still connected somewhat. How would you say the enthusiasm is in the Watchtower right now? I mean, is there any difference than a couple of years ago?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just a Thursday night meeting, I was listening to the brothers, and it was like it seemed like a funeral. There was no enthusiasm. It was, and being away from it, I couldn't. I said to Joe, I said they're just like dead fan. What is it? Dead face, like their voices, and there was no enthusiasm. There was no excitement. There used to be parts on the meeting that were fun, and you'd laugh, and they'd get a little creative. Now it's all by the book, and I really feel bad for the brothers having to conduct these parts because they don't seem like they even enjoy it themselves.
Well, let me ask you guys this. You guys, how long were you in the witness world?
36 years.
36 years. Yeah, that's it. That's how long my well, yeah, that's about. In fact, my wife was a little longer than that, but that's a long time to be in. And what I'm thinking here is, I got out in 2005. Satan kicked me out of his organization back then, and I'm glad he did. But I noticed things really starting to change even then. But I'm sure it's even changed a lot more since then. But the question that would be asked at this point, is there anything that you miss? Is there anything that you guys miss being active Jehovah's Witnesses?
The only thing I miss, which was what we and I originally was interested in, was, oops, we got a train, was Bible information. We became involved because I wanted the family to learn God's Word and learn the Bible. And we started to do that. And there was a seriousness to it. It was deep. It was heavy emphasis on prophecy. But then, past a certain point, it converted to more concern about the organization and about compliance. And it's like, that's just not what I was interested in at all. So it changed. The society changed a lot. So do I miss anything from it now? Absolutely not.
Well, all right. Well, the other thing, the other thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You finish up.
Well, the other thing, we were heavily involved with quick builds. We were on HVAC, that's heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and then site maintenance. The whole family. First, just me, then the whole family. And we were very, very involved. A lot of work. And I can't say I enjoyed it, but the friends, we were involved with the friends, and there was a certain enjoyment of being with friends, but past a certain point, it was hollow. We just felt like slaves. And then now, when you start to realize that you're selling off Kingdom Halls out from under the friends, you realize that really it's a for-profit organization using slave labor basically. And now I'm concerned about the people left in. And the latest programs, some of the latest videos show that they're really pushing hard for the young people to be their future. So they're really grooming young people to be the new slaves. They're just, they know it's not going to be many old folks left who want to do that, especially ones who are wising up and getting out. So now they've got to get the young people to do that. Now we're really concerned about that. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for them.
Well, not at all. In fact,
right.
that's exactly what the biggest problem is right now. Is but,
right.
but where you guys, and you said your age last time, so don't mind me saying. So you're in your early 70s, right?
70.
70. Okay.
70, yeah.
All right. So that's getting up there. Like myself, I'm 70. I'll be 74 this month. But the point would be, Jehovah's Witnesses, for the most part, you're going to see older ones stick with it. They've been with it so long, they stay with it. So if you go into a Kingdom Hall, at least the information people give me here at the Six Queens, that most of the congregations, the older ones seem to be the more loyal ones. But this is what got my attention when you guys first called in, being 70 and leaving. That gives us all hope that, boy, even people my age, our age, are saying, that's it. I've had enough of this. So that gives us all hope. And we're seeing this whole thing crumble down. Now, one of the
Yeah.
other questions I wanted to ask, because the audience would be very interested in this, and we'll open the lines up to them in a while as well. But the question would be, what was really one of the things that really got your attention, and you stopped and looked at it, analyzed it, and said, "Man, something's wrong here." What really was one of the things that caught your attention?
Personally, again, if I may, what really slowed me down from wanting to listen was the tone, the manner, the delivery of, well, ones like Splain and Let and all the big heavy hitters. I listened to them and I thought, this is so disingenuous, just so phony, fake, unnatural. And it's like, weren't we supposed to learn how to be natural? Weren't we supposed to learn how to be, sincere, and not put on airs and whatever? And these guys, they're putting on an act that is the most disgusting put on in the world. I couldn't stomach it. I mean, I just couldn't stomach it. And it was at that point where I remembered that someone was concerned about pedophilia. And I thought, I got to stay. I've got to stay. And then when I found out, it's like I just felt so angry that I didn't know about this sooner, especially with 4 young children that we had brought into the organization. And so at that point, it's like they could do no right. They could do no right at all. And so now we're watching this unfold. And we're watching ones at Bethel coming down with all kinds of emotional problems, alcoholism, drug use, and whatever else we're not even aware of. It's just so unhealthy. It's so tragically unhealthy. But we're so thankful that more and more people are helping each other get out. We're watching what's going on in Bethel particularly. There's so many there that need to exit.
For me, it was a little bit different because I never planned on getting out. I never even considered it. I never thought of it. Matter of fact, for the last 5 years, I've been a regular auxiliary pioneer, getting 50 hours a month in. And in December, I went to visit Joe's mom, and I came home, and Joe said, "Well, I've been checking some things out, and I think you should listen to him." And I knew what he was talking about. And I said, "No." I said, "I don't want to listen to that stuff. I don't want to hear it." And I was going to be determined that I was not going to listen to any of it. And Joe said, "Well, if you want to be reasonable about this, and you'll listen to it." So I think the next day I sat down and I listened, and as soon as I heard about the child abuse, we watched the Australian Royal Commission and the cover-up. I was sick to my stomach, and that was it. I called one of the elders shortly after that, and I said, I'm not going to be regular auxiliary pioneering anymore. I just need a break. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I just need some time. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, take time. If there's anything we can do to help, And they didn't know what was going on, but that was my story.
Well, Fran, that's interesting. That boy, you were pioneering right up until last December, right?
December, yep.
Wow, huh? Well, that's amazing that you hung in there. You guys were really loyal witnesses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the lines, and if there's any questions people have, they could ask you. We have some newly ones out of the Watchtower right now, Fran and Joe. They're on with us. If you'd like to say hello to them, ask them a question, that's fine. They're here with us. Then we're going to entertain what some other ex-witnesses have done and how things are different for them. But if you'd like to speak up and say hello to Joe and Fran, go ahead. You're on the 6 screens. Go ahead. Say hello to them. Give it a few seconds. See what happens. We do have a number.
Hey, Fran.
Go ahead.
Fran, Joe.
Hello.
Are those the two names?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm Joe and Fran.
I'm Fran.
There we go. Anyway, I came in '85, and I was actually not raised in it. I came into it completely on my own before the internet, where I had any resources where I could find anything about, whether or not, even before I found out about the doctrine of the witnesses, whether I could find out about the family structure and the social organization was functional, because I had no way of knowing that, because I studied from '85 to the fall of '87 before I was baptized, and I didn't know what it was like to go home with a baptized witness. I simply went to the hall and studied, and it was a completely different dynamic. And when you get into, after I became active and found out about the dysfunction, about not only just living day to day with someone, but finding out later on how the governing body is covering up all this stuff, and how the whole social dynamic is very dysfunctional. It's very disconcerting on one hand, but on the other hand, the fact that I didn't have an anchor based to being raised in it. I chose to become one, which meant I had the same freedom to choose to leave it. Right. And I chose to leave it after I was married after 10 years in 1998. I was baptized, I was a servant, I was on the cusp of being an elder, but the same dynamics that made me become a witness made me say, you know what, I don't want anything to do with you guys, because this is just bogus.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well,
we also came in 1985, and we were baptized in '88. We were baptized together. That's when they still let husbands and wives go into the pool together, and we did.
Right.
Yeah, but of course we started with 4 children too.
Yeah, they were born in.
3, and Fran was pregnant for 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we're carrying ones with us.
Now they're elders. They're all pioneers. Their husbands are elders. They are fully in.
Yeah.
Right.
At this point. Now, and they heard from us too. They heard from me about my concerns, and all sorts of red flags went up, and alarm whistles went off,
and they started shunning us.
Being careful.
Yes. Because they had it wasn't called a marking talk. They said
warning.
The elders said it's
talk.
a warning talk. And one of our sons said, well, I heard you had your marking talk. And I said, no. I said the elders told us that it was a warning talk.
Mm-hmm.
The kids were all ready to cut us off.
The thing that's so egregious to me is the fact that my concern as a father was for the safety and concern and welfare for not only my children, but other children.
Yeah.
They couldn't even understand that.
No.
Right.
And at that point, I realized we're both not on the same page at all.
Right.
Not at all. These people have a very large problem.
Right. And I did want to say one thing. I remember after I was baptized for a certain period of time, became a servant, and I was right on the cusp of being an elder, and I started realizing I was going on shepherding calls and the elders were grooming me, and I was finding out a lot of really funky things about some of the sexual overtones of these, calls we were going on with elders.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this is kind of funky, but what I think really made me take a deep breath and realize something's wrong. We went to the house of someone I knew since the time before I was baptized, and she was a baptized wife, had 4 kids. Now, as it turns out, 2 of the kids have committed suicide because of things I'm going to reveal in a minute. So there was a lot of sexual deviance going on and heavy, heavy drinking by the husband that used to be an elder. Now he was inactive. So we were going to these shepherding calls, and we're finding out these insinuations about, improprieties done toward these little girls. And we're talking about under the age of 10. And to me, if someone performs something wrong towards someone under the age of 10, they need to be taken out back and thrown in the creek and drowned without help. And that's just me. But my whole point is, I remember going back when I was married in May of 1991. We saw this sister that was the sister of this couple. And I looked at her and I said, Sue, I haven't seen you for 6 months. And she said, okay, John's been beating me. And this is my wedding reception. And I take her aside because she was just the sweetest person in the world. And she looked at me and she said, do you know what the elders told me? And I said, Sue, I have no idea, because I was still kind of naive with the witness, dogma and how they dealt with things organizationally. But she said, do you know what they told me? Even though John was beating her every day, they told her if she left him after he was beating her for 5 years, if she had one account of having sex with someone outside of marriage, they would disfellowship her. And I was thinking, okay, so a guy can beat their wife for 5 years. And the minute she says, I'm done with this, which I don't care who you are, if you're a woman and you're getting beaten and you have a chance to have a new relationship with someone that doesn't beat you and make you happy, the elders have the nerve to tell her the minute she does that, she's going to get disfellowshipped. And her husband is going to be the beneficiary of that, because they told her, you were withholding the marital due because you're supposed to give your husband the due, even though this crazy, and pardon my French, motherfucker was beating her. And Rick, I'm sorry for saying that word, but what a shame that in this hierarchy of the witnesses, if you're a woman and you're getting beaten, you can even be told, if your husband is beating you and he's been inactive for 20 years, the minute you say, I'm going to file for divorce, the witnesses come back and say, well, the minute you have sex with someone else, you're going to get disfellowship for withholding the marital due. Now, can you imagine that?
Yeah. We're finding out that it's not surprising that the rules of control that they have are nothing that we would find in Jesus' teachings.
Right.
It's not. It's just not.
And
there's nothing to do with Christian life.
And I agree. And I have to tell you, I'm not even an active believer, but you wouldn't even find those in normal social interaction in normal society today.
That's right. And there's a reason why they keep the elder book secret. because there's nothing because the rules in it are really unacceptable for normal humans. It's all control. And when I started to find out that the way they exercise their control, for example, in the shepherding calls, it's like I couldn't stand going on when they wanted me to go on. They really were of no help. It's more designed to get information so that they can use it in what they would call keeping the congregation clean. I think they just wanted I think they just want to rule by fear. So people are afraid to do anything for fear of losing their families or their friends.
You're exactly right. And the one thing I learned, and this is something I've talked to about with Rick and Dan, when you start to become a servant and you're kind of trained to be an elder and you go on shepherding calls, you're finding out they're not there to help the people and give them comfort. You're there to dig for information to find out about what they did wrong, to continue the process to instill fear. And I thought, and the crazy thing was, I didn't become a witness till I was 15. Now, I studied the Bible. I started when I was 12 after my dad died. And I knew the Bible said there's something called mercy, and there's something called shepherding, and there's something called realizing people need a moment when they just need to be told how to be comforted without being pressured. And the witnesses were the masters at pressuring. And I'm thinking, whatever happened to, because I could sit back and look at, Matthew chapter 3, Matthew chapter 5, Matthew 13, and you find out about the way Christians are supposed to interact with other people, and the witnesses weren't doing that. They had this network of people that were gossipers, and they were, picking up the phone and telling elders, this person's doing this, we have to handle this right now, instead of being merciful. I didn't mean to come into the show and be just so dogmatic, but this is something that bothers me because I wasn't raised a witness. I became one, and I was ready to hang my hat with them, and everything just turned to crap after I just waited for them to just say, are you going to go by the tenets of the New Testament and how Jesus said how you deal with people, how you shepherd? I really didn't mean to interrupt both of you. I'm really sorry.
Well, what you're saying is, it's something that it has nothing to do with Christian living. It has to do with organizational control, hope control, and
well, Joe and Fran and Chris, what we're going to do here is I want to get some other thoughts coming in here. So you guys hang in there with us. I want to get some more thoughts coming in. It's different being an ex-witness than it is being one of a loyal Jehovah's Witness. So who'd like to come in and tell us what's different today? What's different with you today? How are you doing things differently? Do you do things that you didn't do when you were a witness? Going to movies, parades? Did you get a new job? Did you get a better job? Did you go to school? I want to hear, how did life get better for you when you left the Jehovah's Witnesses? So what do you think?
Hey, Rick, I'd like to make a comment on that one.
Sure.
This is Michael again. I'm talking to you a lot for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway.
That's okay. We would love to hear from you, Mike. Yeah.
I want to say hello to Fran and Joe. This is Michael King. I hope you got my music. I sent you a song, and I hope you received it. It's called He Knows My Name.
Email? Did you send an email, Michael?
No, I didn't get your email. I put it on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll check for it.
Yeah, we don't. I don't check Facebook, but we will check it.
Okay, but anyway, I wanted to tell you about how life has changed for me. I actually preach more than I ever did. I go. There sounds like a horn or something back behind you. Is that me?
There's a train
Okay.
there. There's a train in the backyard there. I guess a Fran and Joe. But go ahead. We'll mute them out. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, I just wanted to tell you that when I first left, I was angry. I actually hated God. I told my kids not to even go there for 10 years. I lived a pretty immoral life. I played music all over the place, and it wasn't good. But then once I received Christ, when I understood His grace, and I think I told this on the show, it was the little girl at Columbine High School who said she believed in God with a gun to her head. I realized where I should be and the things I should be doing. And I was able to go to a church, and this pastor spoke to me like he was actually speaking to me personally during his sermon. I'll never forget it. I said, God, how could you ever forgive me for the things I've done? And I looked up and just received His love into my heart, and it changed my whole life around. I told the band that I wasn't going to play in the clubs and stuff no more. I'll finish out the contracts, but that would be it. And we finished out everything, and then I started playing clubs by myself. And then the band slowly come back to me and asked me what was going on. I was able to share the gospel with them. And when not the Jehovah's Witness gospel, I mean the gospel of Jesus Christ, how He died for your sins, and you don't have to do anything. Everything has already been done. And I received that free gift of life from Him. And then I began to learn about the real Jesus, about what the real Jesus did. And then our whole band changed, and we began to do Christian music all over different churches, tell our testimonies, the things we went through. And I preach and I talk about God every day of my life when I walk out this door. And I'm not a fanatic. I don't mean to say that, but I mean, the conversation will come around. Hey, I heard this song. Yeah, this is why I wrote it. And I get to explain it. So I'm in many different areas. I'm in the sporting field too. And I see a lot of sports figures, and I share the gospel with them. And I share the gospel with the Jehovah's Witness, who's a sports legend. And
Michael, that's beautiful. In fact, I've got to say, I still preach, but saying I do not preach the witness theology. I preach Jesus' word, mission.
Yes,
that's
yeah,
new. That's the only.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. He says himself, and I shared the scripture with you last time you were on, John 14:6. I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have people come to us where we have a little business, and so we constantly have people coming to us, and it's amazing how we discover each other as Christians.
Yeah.
We discover,
Joe,
we preach to each other. Yeah. We share with each other.
Yes. Yes. And you said before that the witnesses don't treat people, the regular world don't treat people as bad as what the witnesses do, And one time...
go ahead. I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to tell you that when my mother died, I was being shunned, of course. I was apostate. But I just got up to introduce my mother to my kids wanted to say something, and I just wanted to introduce my children and say, this is my son, Brian, and they want to say something. And when I got up to speak, all the Jehovah's Witnesses got up and left. And we didn't even have a minister to say opening prayer. And thank goodness, I don't know if you know the basketball star, Jerry Lucas, but Jerry's a friend of mine, and he got up and gave the prayer over my mother for the last for the last time. But
Well,
I'll never forget the sight of those witnesses walking out that door, though.
Yep.
So go ahead, share me your story. I'd love to hear what she's going to say.
No, it's just a quick little experience today. We, like Joe said, we have a little consignment shop. So there was a man that came in and he bought a couple things, and I noticed his ring, and I said, "Oh, is that a custom made ring?" And because we have our wedding bands and they're custom made, and he goes, "No." He said, "But this other ring," he said, "I found this, and it reminds me of the thorns that Jesus had, the crown." And I go, "Oh," I said, "that's nice." I said, "Are you Christian?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "What denomination are you?" I said, "Well, do you have a few minutes?" And then I called Joe in.
I like that. I'm going to use that line. Go ahead.
And so, yeah, he was very patient, and we told him our story. We're telling everybody. I'll tell you another quick one. But anyway, we had a really nice discussion with him, and he believes that, when two or more are gathered together, and we're talking about Jesus and the Bible, that, that's really our faith.
It's just the church.
Yeah, that's church. Well, the other day, I couldn't believe my eyes. The other day, this woman pulls up, and Joe repairs clocks for a business. He does clock repair. So this lady gets out, and I go, "Oh my goodness, it's my old return visit." And I was pretty regular with her. And I said, her name, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And she goes, "Good." And she came in, and Joe looked at her clock, and he was working at it. And I said, "Do you have a few minutes?" And so she sat down. I sat down. I said, "This is what's been happening to us." And she said, "Well, I wondered." She says, "I hadn't heard anything from you, and you were always pretty good about coming to my door or calling or writing a letter, and I hadn't heard anything." I said, "Well, this is why." And she was just so nice, and it was unbelievable, the conversations we are having with people.
If I could interject, I could say that the interactions that we have now are spiritual. Yes. They were not spiritual before. They were theocratic. They weren't spiritual. It's totally different, and I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful for that. And honestly, I'm sure there's other friends that are that need and want to escape, so that they can, so that they can discover the spiritual hunger that they have, and to be filled through that. Because the longer they stand in that organization, the longer they're going to be starved.
Well, there you go. That's a great way of thinking about all of this, you guys. I'm so glad to see too that you didn't leave God behind when you left the Watchtower. And both of you folks, what I would like to do, we have a program on Sunday, tomorrow, and we do it. We get into the theological teachings of the Watchtower here on Sunday on the 6 screens. We don't preach on Saturday night. But we have a program tomorrow. It's really gaining a lot of momentum. It's called Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses Share Their Christian Testimony. And boy, we've been doing this now for about, I'd say, 6 months. And we have so many people coming forward and telling us their story of leaving the Watchtower and becoming Christians. So, Michael, I do have Fran and Joe's email. And if anytime you guys want to come on the program, Michael, if you'd like to come on the program, write me at JW World News, jwworldnews@gmail.com, and let me know who you are. And I want to get you on that program because listening to your testimony is very meaningful. I like what you had to say tonight. Good man, Michael. I want to get you on the program and tell your testimony here on the 6 screens. Well, we've got a lot of people still listening in tonight. I can't believe it. Lots of people. You would think people would be out enjoying the summer vacation time, but boy, they're coming into the 6 screens tonight. So if you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, I want to know. You're listening to Fran, you're listening to Joe, her husband, you're listening to Michael, you just listened to Chris. These are all ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Their life has changed. It's different for them now that they have left. So what do you guys think? Tell me, has things changed for you when you left the Watchtower and became an ex-Jehovah's JW. Did things get better? Go ahead, you're on with us. *6. Well, I think you guys are kind of shy tonight. I'm sure life got better for you, right? I don't think you're still stuck in the doldrums of the Watchtower. I believe that life has really been enhanced. You might have got a better job. You went to school. You're making more money. Not that that's everything in the world, but it certainly can help. So what do you think? Has life got better when you left? Go ahead. Well, I'm surprised we're not. I really thought that we'd get along. Yeah, go ahead.
Rick, this is Michael. I lost. I was on the other phone while they were telling the story. My phone went dead, and I had to get on this one. So, but I heard the end of the story. But I wanted to tell Fran a joke.
Go ahead. I guess Michael's having trouble with his phone. Mike, you having trouble with the phone? Somehow, some way, he disappeared. But we'll get him back on. We'll get him back on. Well, I know my life got a lot better. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, I'd like to take a shot at that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my life got better because of a couple of reasons. The first one is that the guilt. Guilt was absolutely killing me. The guilt started in Vietnam, and then in the Jehovah's Witnesses, I believe that I should be going out in the field service all the time and so forth. If I didn't, I was blood guilty, and I had to go to all the meetings because, I have to set an example. And, I didn't like that. But once I got out, and matter of fact, the other reason I got out, I get this fellowship, but the other reason that I started seeing life so much differently. No longer did I had the guilt, and because I had a lot of guilt, I used to drink a lot. So that was never good for you, and I didn't have my self-respect was gone, and that started coming back as the guilt started to go away, and I started finding myself, looking at things a whole lot differently. Then I realized that Jehovah's Witnesses was a scam, and that there were so many good people that stuck in there that don't know it's a scam, don't realize it's a scam, because they've been hoodwinked by the Watchtower. And, I kind of blessed the day that I ran into you and that program that you ran at the Holiday Inn. I think the year was 2003, I think, or 2004, somewhere around that time. Life is better. I don't have the guilt. I found a good church with an outstanding pastor, and I don't agree with everything that my church does, but by far the majority of things that they do, like 99% of it, is wonderful, and they treat people great. My church has something that Jehovah's Witnesses never had. We have what they call life groups, and if you have some kind of an affliction that you're having a hard time dealing with, whether it's alcohol or drugs, or you're hooked on gambling, or you're hooked on porn or lying, or you're going through a difficult time with divorce, there are so many life groups. And as a matter of fact, I brought a brother and sister from my hall, brother and sister from my church on 6 screens 3 or 4 years ago, and they talked about all the different life groups that my church does. And my church supports other churches that are burnt down or they're building. We have what you call quick builds at our church too. That's not just germane to Jehovah's Witnesses. So when you're in a good church, you feel it's not like if you go afar, if you make some kind of a sin, the whole congregation is not going to be punished for it. Jehovah's not going to take the Holy Spirit away from the congregation. Everybody dies on Armageddon because of your sin. You know, there's none of that BS, and that's all it is BS that the Watchtower has been throwing at people for years. Yeah, I guess that's all I want to say about it. I'm just glad I met you at the Holiday Inn, and I'm just glad I'm out of that cult. It's sometimes it's a little difficult being out of the cult. I spent 20 years in it, and you know, my friends and family, my sister, and you know, a lot of people that I cared about won't talk to me anymore. And the guys that I played sports with in high school, they don't have anything to do with me, because every time they used to talk to me when I was a witness, I would try to get them. I'd try to preach Jehovah's Witnesses to them, so they don't have anything to do with me. So, you know, after I was out 5 or 6 years, I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any family, I had nothing, and that's what Jehovah's Witnesses will do to you. They'll take a lot from you, and they'll give you nothing back. Thanks, Rick.
Well, there you go, Dick. Yeah, in fact, I met Dick back in 2004. That's when it was. And of course, I was wiggling my way loose. I wasn't even disfellowshipped then, but I ran a seminar at a Holiday Inn. And I took an ad out in the paper saying, come and find out what the Watchtower is hiding behind. So even before I was disfellowshipped, I had 23 people show up at the Holiday Inn up here in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. And I got up there. We had a couple of people giving talks. And that's when I started my activism. And that's even before the advent of our Six Screens network here. But that's what I did. We had a couple of those seminars, and we brought people together and talked about what the Watchtower was hiding behind. Well, you're on JW World News, an extension. Reese did not come in tonight with his program, but we're continuing this for about another half hour, and then we go to Apostle Babe. But anyways, if you're an ex-witness and you're listening into this program tonight,
hello?
Man, yeah, your life has changed. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Stefan. I just want to say hello to everybody. Hello, Fran and Joe. This is Stefan. I think in a couple ways that my life changed. I think the first one, and all of what you said was true. I did get a better job and more money and all of that. But I think as soon as I woke up, I think the first thing that I noticed is that I no longer had this us versus them mentality when it came to people who are non-witnesses. And I even began to despise and greatly despise the term worldly. I cannot stand that term. I now view everybody on the planet as a brother or a sister, irrespective of religion, nationality, gay and lesbian, whatever. We're all, and for the first time, I really began to be connected to the planet, connected to other people. I saw causes, and without having that sort of, doesn't matter, it's the world, they're going to die anyway, so who cares about whatever suffering they happen to be going through. And so now I'm connected to it, and I feel those things, and I want to help people in any kind of way that I wanted to. And it took leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses to feel like a human being connected to other human beings, and to care and to want to help make the world a better place. So I think those are probably the first two things that changed.
Well, Stefan, that's wonderful. You could share that with people here tonight. And I'm going to tell you what really caught my attention when you first spoke up. Yeah, we all had this us versus them attitude. But isn't it nice now?
Correct.
Isn't it nice just to know that, everyone can really be a friend? They don't have to be a Jehovah's Witness. We can befriend a lot of people. We can friend a lot of people. We can really get to like a lot of people. So I think that's a good thing. I like what you said. This idea of worldly people, you're bad. Boy, it really stopped a lot of good friendship. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, even when you think about how we were taught not to interact with our neighbors, not to interact with our coworkers. And so we must have seemed like really insane people to people that live with us, because we basically only interact just enough so we could go and try to preach to them. And if they weren't interested, then we kind of give them that that cold shoulder and keep them at arm's bay. People that I work with that, well, I started a new job, so I was relatively new to these people, but previous jobs, never went to lunch with, didn't know anything, you know, about. I can't even imagine how they must have viewed me for being that way. Now I go to lunch, and I tell you, the people that I work with, they're just the most wonderful people, and I'm sure the people at the other jobs that I never interacted with are just as wonderful. But of course, you never know that because you don't interact with them. You treat them basically like they got the plague. They're only good for witnessing to. If they don't respond, then the heck with them, and you keep them at arm's bay. And you find out that these are wonderful people. A lot of them are probably even better than some of the witnesses because they're married. They don't abuse their wives. They don't cheat on their husbands and wives, pay their taxes, and they have a code of conduct that they obey, things that they do and are not going to do. And it's not about the Bible per se. It's just this is what we think is right and wrong.
Good for you, Stephen. No, that's true. Go ahead. We get somebody else. Go ahead.
Joe,
Hello.
Joe here. Hi, Stephen. I appreciate you. I appreciate you mentioning that. I never liked the way they took away other people from us. They took away warm relationships that we could have, and now we do have those back. And I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Think about the family relationships that we never had. I mean, the only person that was a Jehovah's Witness was my mother. My father was for a hot minute, and he left, so he never was for the majority of my life. But all my other relatives and cousins, I mean, probably 30 some odd people that I really had no relationship with my whole life simply because they weren't witnesses.
Yeah,
and
same here. It unlocked any warmer relationships with our family, which we should always have. They took it away, we took it back.
Exactly.
Hey, we had a sister on there too that wanted to come in and share her story. So go ahead, sister. Come on. Say hello to Stephen. Say hello to Joe and Fran. Come on, sister.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, what I wanted to say was you had asked the question, what changes did we make as soon as we weren't Jehovah's Witnesses anymore?
Yeah.
And I wanted to comment on that.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the first things I did was go to the polls and sign up to work at the voting polls. And since I had not voted since I was 18, I didn't become a witness until I was in my 20s. And they asked me, well, what side do you want to vote on? And they had to describe to me the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. And I chose to be a Republican because, you know, I'm more conservative than liberal. But that was one of the first things that I did was sign up to work at the polls. And then I decided, you know what? I want to celebrate Christmas. I want to celebrate Halloween. I want to do everything that religious organization told me I couldn't do, that they decided was wrong for me. I did not become immoral. You know, that is one thing I will give to the witnesses for me as a person, is that they taught me morals. But everything else, it was like fair game. And I would put up the biggest Christmas trees, decorate them with everything imaginable, had the most outrageous Halloween stuff that you can imagine. And another thing too that was so cool, it was like once I signed up for the polls and I learned about politics, because I really didn't know that because we weren't supposed to know that sort of stuff. My husband taught me so much stuff. And then I convinced him to register to vote. And we both voted together. And it was beautiful. But that organization stifles so many things that are so unnecessary to stifle. I appreciate morals, but the other stuff is like, what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it. They create it to be wrong so they can create this separation. And it's not necessary to have this separation. So
correct.
I think I said everything I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank
I
you.
felt the same way. That
Go ahead. Go ahead, Stefan. Yep.
I immediately signed up to do some charity work because it always bothered me in my whole life that we weren't doing anything charitable, that we essentially helped no one. All we gave you was a Watchtower and a Wake a Track or something, and that's it. And then you look around and there's all these charities and organizations and everybody's helping everybody. So that was one of the first things I did. I signed up for Habitat for Humanity, and then of course COVID struck, so that slowed down everything. And then there's also a farm that you can donate time to. I'm going to be joining with them as soon as I finish some projects around the house. So just like I said, wanting to contribute to society, that was the first change I think that came over me.
Stefan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I want to add to what you just said about doing something humanitarian. I went to every church in my community, churches outside of my community. I worked with those churches. I took children in my neighborhood to those churches. I became this person who wanted to make a difference. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And we were always that person. We were just stymied. The organization stymied. They only allowed us to be humanitarian in the way that they wanted us to be humanitarian, which benefited them. But now we're just being ourselves. We were always that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I was just going to say, with Joe and I, the first thing that we did was celebrate Joe's mom's birthday, and she's 95. She has Alzheimer's, so she doesn't really understand, but the family really appreciated us being there because we hadn't been to a birthday party in 36 years. So, and then last week we celebrated, it was David and our other cousin. They both have birthdays in the same week, so they combined their birthdays. And she said, this is the best birthday party, the best birthday present I could ever get. And she was just so happy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is.
That is just yeah. You get angry when you think about how we missed out on these things for absolutely no reason. I mean, I was thinking about this whole why don't we celebrate holidays, and it's amazing because you can ask a witness and they can't really explain it. You know, they have to go try to find a publication because it just doesn't make any sense. And to think about how we let these nonsensical things hold us back from just doing the most beautiful things, just spending time with your family. I mean, Mother's Day. The person who brought you into this world and cared for you and fed you and taught you and protected you and loved you, gave you all the support so you could be this wonderful human being. But you can't celebrate Mother's Day. You can't, which every day should be a celebration of Mother's Day. Don't get me wrong. But the point that I'm making, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it in the first place.
Right.
You just sometimes I say I'm glad I'm not in the presence of this governing body because I don't know. I think I'd put hands on them.
Well, that's a good way to put it, Stefan. Because I'll tell you, a lot of people feel that way. Oh boy, I'm so glad you guys are speaking up. I do believe we got some others. Who else wants to join the conversation? Now, listen, has things changed for you when you became an ex-witness? I mean, how is it different from being a witness? You get a better job? Did you go to school? You making more money? Did you buy a house? Did you buy a new car? I mean, what changed in your life? I know you guys are out there, so why don't you just muster up the courage? Well, maybe it didn't. I mean, maybe you're thinking, well, nothing much happened, but I'm telling you, I'm sure the dynamics change. So go ahead, speak up for the first time. Don't be bashful. Hit *6 and say, Rick, this is how my life changed. Come on, tell the world, let them know how it's so important to leave the Watchtower. Come on now, I'm counting on you. We got a lot of people listening in tonight, and it's, my world changed. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, it's Chad. I just wanted to share a little bit because I was never Jehovah's Witness, but I was in a different cult, and there's so many parallels for anyone coming out of a cult. I know for me, a couple things that changed is I stopped judging everyone, and I was able to start extending a helping hand to them. instead of a judgmental attitude. You know, if I saw someone who was having hard times, instead of being able to look at them and think I'm better than them, I was finally able to reach out a helping hand and try to give them a hand up instead of pushing them down further, making them feel bad. Another thing that I learned was I didn't know anywhere near as much about the Bible or religion as I thought I did before. And that really took a lot of wind out of my sails, because I had to go through a process where I unlearned all the bad stuff that had been pounded into me. And then I had to start from scratch to learn everything all over again. And it blew my mind how far away I was actually led. So I know for me, it was a matter of being able to be a loving person who extends grace to those in need, and also being able to let go and think, you know what, maybe I don't have all the answers. And I stopped looking down on everyone spiritually, you know, as well.
We thank you for joining in.
Any other way.
To speak up and talk, press *6 on your telephone. When you are done talking.
Well, yeah, don't pay. All right, hold on. We'll get back in here, folks. Just stay with us if you're on YouTube. Our telephone lines go off every 6 hours.
Welcome into the live Six
So
Screens
just play with
conference
us,
calls.
We'll
thank
get
you
right
for
in here.
joining in. To speak up and talk, press *6 on your telephone. When you are done talking, press *6 to mute yourself. Remember, when you are unmuted, your phone is a microphone and picks up on all noises in the background. We hope you enjoy the programs tonight. You will now be placed into the conference.
If you are the, please enter. Thank you. There are.
Yeah, what happens is when the phone goes off every 6 hours, so we have to put it back on again. So we're back on now. Every 6 hours it goes off, so stay with us.
Does anyone know what that program is on Sunday that Rick was talking about?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me, Fran?
Yeah, that comes on at 1 o'clock Central Time, 2 o'clock Eastern. The programs tomorrow start at 12 Eastern, 11 Central.
Okay. 12 Eastern.
All right. In fact, can you guys hear me now?
Tomorrow they're going to start at 12 noon.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine right now.
Tomorrow, Rick.
Yeah. In fact, Chad, while you're on here with us, Six Screen Sunday is a little different than Saturday night. You know, people that have left the Watchtower, many of them have different spiritual thoughts, and we discuss theological feelings and spirituality on Sunday. Chad, you still there with us?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you tell the people about your program coming up tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Time?
Tomorrow we're going to be looking at the very heart of how the Jehovah's Witnesses, how the Watchtower is able to control the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's the very heart of the matter. I'm going to go into some of the more technical aspects of it, but I'm going to give a background of it, and it's all about how they twist the scriptures in order to control the people, how they're able to get away with it, and how people can break free of that programming, because part of the problem with the Jehovah's Witness thinking, their enslavement, is they are programmed to think a certain way when they hear a scripture. We're going to talk a little bit about, you know, how to unprogram yourself from that and be able to break free of that poisonous thinking. So we'll be doing that at 12 Eastern and 11 a.m. Central Time. I hope everyone will be able to tune in.
Well, excellent, Chad. Now, also, we've got, let me just give a little promo for tomorrow's lineup. And then at 1 o'clock, we have two Christian apologists that are coming on and are dealing with the theology, or at least the teaching in the Watchtower of the 144,000, and how that is wrong. It's not just 144,000. So they're going to be showing you the difference tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, we have got a program that really is taken off like a rocket. It's called Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses Share Their Christian Testimony. And it has been remarkably successful. I mean, people had to get their Kleenex boxes out because people ended up crying on the program and how they got out of the Watchtower, out of false religion, and came to real truth. So that's tomorrow at 2. And then at 3, we do JW World News, once again, the Sunday edition. And then at 4 o'clock, if you have never listened to Jay Hess, he was associated with the Watchtower Writing Department, and he has his own program on. He's really remarkable when it comes to explaining the Bible. He answers all kinds of Bible questions. He'll be on tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so that's 6 Screen Sunday. Everything being the same, so looking forward to seeing you all. Well, boy, I'll tell you what, it's been a rockin' awesome night here. Lots of people coming in. And we're going to be getting a pasta babe coming on here very shortly. But boy, I'll tell you, it's remarkable. It's really remarkable how many people are leaving the Watchtower right now. They all have a story to tell. And this is where people come to tell their stories right here. This is where ex-Jehovah's Witness and active Jehovah's Witnesses come to talk. They come to talk right here on the 6 Screens Tell the Network. And I'm not sure how that all happened, but it happened. You know, slowly but surely, like a little snowball rolling down the hill. And it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And here we are today. This is where people come to talk. We got time for 1 or 2 more people coming in. If you guys listen, how was your life changed? How has your life changed since you became an ex-witness? I know it's changed. It has to. My world is like, I felt like I was in another life. I feel like I'm a new man here. I don't know what type of a world I was in before, but I'm sure you guys have a new life too. Just briefly explain it to us if you like. Come on. *6. My goodness. I can't believe I thought the phone lines would be jammed up tonight with that, but I guess people
Hello, Rick?
Yes. Yes.
I'm not a first caller, as you know, but, I just wanted to chime in. Yeah, I've been out of the organization now 40 years, and I wanted to say hello to Fran and Joe, and it's so wonderful to hear your testimony and to meet you tonight over the phone. I'm here in California. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was not born in. I was a convert as a teenager and stayed into my late 20s. But I started to study because my mom had. My mom studied, but she never got baptized, which she was very smart to do. So anyway, but I took it sort of hook, line, and sinker and got baptized in True Blue JW, for about 12 years. And education was always very important to me because my mom instilled that in me. So did my dad. But my dad had died when I was a teenager. And so education was always very, very important to me. And we were so confined and restricted and, discouraged, strongly discouraged from getting a college education. So when I left, that was the first thing I did. And I got a couple of degrees. And, I was able to teach at the community college level because I always respected education. And my favorite students were the reentry women that raised their kids, or whatever the reason was, they didn't go back to college till later. Those are my favorite students. And so I really loved that. And then wanted to become a full-time professor, but those positions, at the JC level are like gold. The professors hold on to them for life. So then I decided to go into social work, and, I've always had a compassion and love for people. And so, I had that opportunity. But one thing that it really has done for me is, I feel very free and I feel very happy. I'm very happy. When you
come out of the organization, your mind is like a roller coaster, all the emotions and the shunning and everything. I mean, I can laugh now, but then it wasn't the case. But, you know, I didn't have to go through what many of you had. I mean, I had no one in my family that were JWs. So I didn't have to worry about that. But the witnesses were my family. There was no doubt about that. And my brother Johnny and Lisa, they got married, and, you know, we were Catholic. We were born and raised Catholic. And they had a high mass, and Johnny and Lisa wanted me to be in their wedding, and you know it was going to be a big to do, high mass. If you know anything about Catholicism, that's a real big deal. And so, you know, I had just gotten baptized literally 7 days before they got married, and I had to turn that down to be a part of their wedding. Well, to this day, my brother Johnny has disowned me, and so that's 50 years ago. So, you know, we don't have any kind of relationship. So even with my other brothers as well, because I was a witness and didn't celebrate the holidays and all that. And, you know, they just could never understand that. So, but anyway, the point is that my life has been so much better. I've tried to reconnect with my brothers, but, you know, the ball's in their court. I've reconnected with my cousins, so that's been really wonderful. And, you know, I'm very happy. I've had some great career opportunities, great, incredible educational opportunities, and met some wonderful people. And, you know, one thing I really have always had a heart for were people. And I loved how that brother said Habitat for Humanity, because, boy, that's a great organization, no doubt about it. But I've been on the streets of San Francisco and served the homeless people, walking up and down the street. Many of them were teenagers and drug addicts, and then, you know, help the homeless where I live now. So, you know, the homeless people used to terrify me, you know, because some of them are a little bit scary. But I've put on a thicker skin now, and, you know, they're just broken people, you know. And what's interesting is we're all broken. I don't care if they're even witnesses. Witnesses are broken, you know. We're all broken in one way or the other. So, you know, if you come from a place of love and really trying to serve people from that perspective, you know, it can really move mountains, and they're very grateful and appreciative. So, you know, I'm very happy with my life right now. Very, very happy. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on, and it's a pleasure to meet you over the phone, and just take it day by day. You know, I know you have your children in there, and I'll be praying for you. But I love what Joe said. You know, it's nothing about Christianity. It's all about an organization and all their rules and regulations. And that was one thing that really woke me up. You know, I could see that. It was real clear. And I think I had an advantage because of not being born a witness. You know, I could see the organization from a different perspective because I was born and raised Catholic. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say tonight. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Could I say one thing before you go on?
Yeah, here's what we're going to do. Hold on one second, Chris. I'm just going to tell people on YouTube, if you're listening in on YouTube, we're going to end the program here. We'll be picking the program up with Apostle Babe coming on in about 5 minutes, but we're ending the program on YouTube right here. We want to thank all of you guys for coming in, and Facebook, the same thing. If you guys want to listen into Apostle Babe, she'll be back on YouTube and Facebook in about 5 or 10 minutes. So stay with us, but YouTube and Facebook are going off the air right now. So let's do that. And in the meantime, Chris, come on and say hello.